Beneath the arid plains of ancient Mesopotamia lies a civilization that, despite its brilliance, remains shrouded in mystery. The Sumerians, pioneers of writing, mathematics, and architecture, left behind a legacy that defies explanation. How did a culture so ancient possess knowledge of the stars, the cosmos, and advanced technologies that we are only now beginning to understand? Who were the Anunnaki, and why did they hold such power over Sumerian society? What truly led to the sudden disappearance of this extraordinary people? For centuries, these questions have haunted scholars and explorers alike, but the answers remain hidden, buried beneath layers of time. So sit back, relax, and let's unravel the greatest unsolved mysteries of the Sumerians, one enigma at a time. The winds of the ancient Mesopotamian plains blow gently across the land where the first cities of civilization once stood. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, known as Sumer, is a cradle of human history, where the very concept of kingship, writing, and law began to take shape. Yet, beneath the dust of time and the layers of history, one name continues to resurface. An enigmatic group of beings, both revered and feared, known as the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, often depicted as gods in Sumerian mythology, are mentioned in texts that date back over 4,000 years. But what exactly were they? Deities, extraterrestrials, or something else entirely? These beings are said to have descended from the heavens, bringing knowledge and power to early human civilizations. They were credited with creating mankind, according to some versions of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and played a role in shaping the course of Sumerian history. But beyond these ancient texts, what do we truly know about them? In the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth, the Anunnaki are depicted as powerful figures who were involved in the creation of the world and the arrangement of the cosmos. The text describes them as gods with divine authority, overseeing the balance of forces in the universe. They are said to have governed the heavens, the earth, and the underworld, each with specific roles that contributed to the maintenance of cosmic order. In Sumerian art, they were often portrayed as imposing, larger-than-life figures, their eyes glinting with divine wisdom. But was this truly a reflection of their nature, or were these gods something more? The idea of the Anunnaki has sparked intense debate among scholars and enthusiasts alike. Traditional historians view the Anunnaki as purely mythological, part of the pantheon of gods that the Sumerians worshipped in their daily lives. Yet, some theories venture further into the unknown, suggesting that the Anunnaki were not gods in the traditional sense, but beings from another world, extraterrestrials who visited Earth in ancient times, influencing the development of human civilization. These ideas, largely popularized by authors like Zecharia Sitchin, have ignited a firestorm of speculation. Could it be that these ancient texts are describing an alien encounter rather than divine intervention? According to Sitchin's theory, the Anunnaki came from a distant planet called Nibiru, whose orbit brings it close to Earth every 30,600 years. This theory posits that the Anunnaki's arrival on Earth was not a matter of divine will, but rather a mission driven by their need for gold, an element they sought to use to repair their home planet's atmosphere. It is said that, in their quest, the Anunnaki manipulated early humans to mine this gold for them, leading to the creation of a slave race that would do their bidding. This view of the Anunnaki challenges the traditional understanding of Sumerian mythology. While most scholars regard the Anunnaki as symbolic representations of the natural forces and powers of the universe, the alternative theory suggests a far more tangible, even futuristic scenario, one in which ancient astronauts visited Earth, shaping the course of human history with technology and knowledge beyond the comprehension of early civilizations. Yet, Despite the captivating nature of these theories, there is little concrete evidence to support the idea of extraterrestrial involvement in the Sumerian world. Archaeological records and ancient texts speak of gods, but not aliens. The Sumerians, after all, were not the only ancient civilization to create stories of gods descending from the heavens. Similar myths exist across cultures, from the Egyptians to the Greeks, suggesting a common archetype rather than a literal historical event. As we peer deeper into the records left behind by the Sumerians, fragmented tablets, carved stone monuments, and monumental ziggurats, the mystery of the Anunnaki persists. Were they indeed powerful deities, guiding the fate of humankind, or is there a more complex, hidden truth waiting to be uncovered? Could it be that the Anunnaki were more than just gods, perhaps agents of a higher intelligence, whose true nature we are only beginning to comprehend? The questions remain, tantalizing and unresolved. Was their knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering a gift from the gods, or a product of advanced civilizations long lost to time? And as we continue to decipher the ancient texts, what might we discover about these mysterious beings that could forever alter our understanding of the past and the true origins of civilization itself? In the dusty ruins of ancient Mesopotamia, beneath the shadows of towering ziggurats and the remnants of bustling cities, lies an extraordinary legacy, one that would forever change the course of human history. It is a system of communication, inscribed in clay and stone, that has left its mark on the very fabric of civilization. This is the world of Cuneiform, the writing system developed by the Sumerians over 5,000 years ago, one of humanity's earliest and most enigmatic forms of written expression. At first glance, the cuneiform script may seem unintelligible, a series of wedge-shaped symbols pressed into clay tablets. But within these seemingly simple marks lies an incredible story of invention, adaptation, and mystery. The earliest examples of cuneiform date back to around 3500 BCE, etched into the soft clay of the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley. Over time, it evolved from a system of pictographs, images representing words or concepts, into a complex, abstract system capable of conveying the full range of human thought. The transition from pictures to abstract symbols raises an intriguing question. How did the Sumerians, who had no prior model for written language, arrive at such a sophisticated form of communication? Early pictographs, like the image of a fish or a house, represented concrete objects. But soon, these simple images were modified to represent sounds, syllables, and more abstract ideas. This shift from visual representation to phonetic writing marked a profound leap in cognitive development and communication. It is a development we still rely on today, yet its origins remain shrouded in mystery. By the end of the 3rd millennium BCE, cuneiform had become one of the most versatile writing systems in history, used for everything from administrative records and trade transactions to epic literature, legal codes, and religious texts. It is through cuneiform that we have access to some of the most significant pieces of literature ever written. The Epic of Gilgamesh, a tale of gods, kings, and the search for immortality. The fact that such a story survived the ravages of time and remains legible today is nothing short of miraculous. But how did such intricate writing come to be? Historians agree that the system was largely developed for the purposes of trade and administration. Early cuneiform inscriptions were used to keep track of commodities, such as grain and livestock, as the Sumerians built their intricate system of cities and states. But this raises another question. How did a tool designed for accounting evolve into a medium for epic poetry and philosophical reflection? Was it purely a matter of necessity, or could there have been other forces at play, such as the presence of an advanced knowledge base that guided the Sumerians in their intellectual pursuits? Some scholars have suggested that the Sumerians' rapid development of writing and complex systems of knowledge was influenced by something more than mere cultural evolution. Could there have been outside influences, either through contact with other advanced civilizations or perhaps even extraterrestrial beings, that accelerated their progress? These are questions that linger at the edges of mainstream scholarship, but they cannot be easily dismissed, especially when one considers the extraordinary speed with which cuneiform transformed from simple symbols to an abstract and highly sophisticated writing system. Despite centuries of study, much about the cuneiform script remains elusive. Hundreds of thousands of tablets have been uncovered, many of which still defy full translation. While much of the language has been deciphered, key texts, such as certain religious rituals and administrative documents, remain incomprehensible, as if the Sumerians were communicating on a level that modern scholars can only partially grasp. Could there be deeper layers of meaning encoded within the script, waiting to be uncovered? What are we missing in our understanding of these ancient writings? The Sumerians' mastery of written language is not just a testament to their ingenuity. It is a reminder of how much we still have to learn about the true origins of human civilization. As we continue to study their language, we must ask ourselves, what other secrets might be hidden in the cuneiform tablets that have yet to be discovered? How many more mysteries lie buried beneath the surface, awaiting the moment when the right key will finally unlock them? In the heart of Mesopotamia, beneath the ancient skies that once watched over the birth of civilization, a pantheon of gods and goddesses emerged, figures who not only shaped the spiritual lives of the Sumerians, but whose influence reverberated through the myths and beliefs of later civilizations. The Sumerian gods were more than mere deities. They were the architects of the cosmos, the keepers of order, and the dispensers of both blessing and destruction. Their origins, however, remain as mysterious as the winds that sweep across the ruins of their once great cities. At the center of Sumerian belief was a profound connection between the divine and the earthly. The gods were thought to inhabit a realm that transcended human experience but was ever present, directing the fate of individuals and nations alike. Among the most significant deities were Anu, the sky god, Enlil, the god of air and storms, and Enki, the god of water and wisdom. Together with other gods and goddesses like Inanna, Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, they created an intricate and powerful pantheon that governed not only the natural world, but also the laws of civilization itself. The question that arises, however, is where did these gods come from? Were they purely products of human imagination, forged in the minds of early priests and kings? Or was there something more? Something that goes beyond myth, suggesting that these beings had origins that we are still struggling to understand? Ancient texts describe the gods as beings of immense power and wisdom, yet their actions, their lives, and their very existence seem to suggest something far more complex. The gods of Sumer did not merely watch from afar, they interacted directly with humanity, shaping the world through their decisions, their marriages, their conflicts, and their commands. There are accounts of gods descending to earth, shaping mankind, and sometimes even mating with humans to produce offspring of divine lineage. Such narratives prompt intriguing questions. Were these gods truly divine, or were they something else entirely? Some fringe theories suggest that the gods could have been extraterrestrial beings, perhaps visitors from another world, bringing with them knowledge far beyond what was available to the Sumerians at the time. These theories often center on the Anunnaki, a group of gods frequently mentioned in Sumerian texts, who were said to have come from the heavens and played a significant role in shaping the early human race. The Anunnaki's connection to the origins of humanity is a topic of particular fascination. According to some interpretations of ancient Sumerian texts, these gods were not only responsible for creating mankind, but also for imparting knowledge and technology that seemed far beyond the capabilities of the time. Was this an elaborate allegory, or did the Sumerians possess some kind of esoteric understanding of the cosmos, perhaps passed down from these mysterious beings? Some even speculate that the Anunnaki may have been involved in early genetic experiments, manipulating human DNA to create a race capable of achieving great things. As intriguing as these theories are, they remain speculative. The fact remains that the Sumerians themselves seem to view their gods as part of an eternal cycle of divine influence, beings who existed before the creation of the world and whose actions shaped the destiny of mankind. They were not simply celestial figures in the sky. They were intimately tied to the land, to the rivers, and to the cities that made up the Sumerian world. Their temples stood as towering monuments, and their statues, some of which have survived millennia, still convey a sense of their immense power. What is perhaps most puzzling about the Sumerian gods is the nature of their influence. They were not benevolent beings in the modern sense. They demanded rituals, sacrifices, and obedience. They could be vengeful and cruel, as seen in stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh, where the gods inflict punishment on humankind for perceived transgressions. Yet, they were also the bringers of civilization, law, and knowledge. The origins of these gods, their arrival, their interaction with humanity, and their lasting impact remain deeply enigmatic. Were they inspired by real events, such as the arrival of a foreign civilization? Were they projections of early human fears, desires, and hopes? Or was there something more to these divine figures, a truth hidden in the myths and legends that we have yet to fully uncover? As we continue to explore the rich and complex world of the Sumerians, one thing becomes clear. The gods were far more than mythological creations. Their presence in the ancient world was profound and deeply intertwined with the human experience. But their true nature, whether divine, alien, or something else entirely, remains locked in the sands of time, waiting for us to decipher the clues they left behind.
Imagine standing amidst the ruins of ancient Sumer, the cradle of civilization, where the sands of time have concealed countless treasures, some of which may never see the light of day. Beneath the layers of earth and history, hidden away in forgotten tombs and deteriorating archives, lie the manuscripts of a civilization that once flourished in ways we can only begin to understand. These are the lost Sumerian manuscripts, relics of a culture that wrote down its history, knowledge, and mysteries on clay tablets long before writing became a widespread human practice. The Sumerians were the first to develop a system of writing, Cuneiform, which they used to document everything from trade transactions to religious rituals, from laws to epic poetry. Today, we have uncovered hundreds of thousands of these ancient texts, many of which reveal detailed insights into the Sumerians' advanced knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and society. Yet, for all the tablets that have survived, there is an overwhelming number that remain lost or fragmented, their stories and secrets slipping further out of reach with every passing year. What happened to these missing manuscripts? Where did they go, and what knowledge might they have contained? While we cannot know for certain what these lost texts held, the idea of missing manuscripts is not merely speculation. It's grounded in fact. Many of the Sumerian tablets that have been discovered were painstakingly catalogued and preserved by archaeologists and historians. Yet, the process of excavation and preservation is far from perfect. Over time, many important texts have been damaged, lost to natural disasters, decay, or even human hands. Fires, floods, and invasions have all conspired to erase much of the ancient written record. There are even cases where entire libraries of cuneiform tablets have been lost in the chaos of war or political upheaval. One of the most well-known losses is the so-called Library of Ashurbanipal. an ancient collection of texts from the Neo-Assyrian period that contains a vast array of Sumerian and Akkadian writings. While much of the library was salvaged in the 19th century, it is believed that significant portions of the collection were destroyed long before its rediscovery. What exactly was lost in the centuries between the fall of Assyria and the rediscovery of these texts is unknown, but we can only imagine the breadth of knowledge that could have been contained within those missing volumes. Could there have been records of Sumerian kings, unrecorded mythologies, or even scientific insights that have since been erased from history? There is a similar story with the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the most famous Sumerian works to survive. This epic, thought to be the world's oldest surviving work of literature, was originally composed in Sumerian and later translated into Akkadian. Yet, the earliest surviving copies of the text come from the Babylonian period, thousands of years after its composition. The original Sumerian versions of the epic, believed to contain significant differences in plot and character, remain lost to us. What might these early versions have revealed about the original thoughts and ideas of the Sumerian people? The tantalizing question of what other texts were lost alongside these famous epics extends into more obscure and mysterious territories. Archaeological excavations continue to unearth fragments of tablets and manuscripts, many of which are too damaged to decipher or too incomplete to offer any concrete information. However, there are several mysterious cases where entire collections of manuscripts appear to have disappeared without a trace. In the ancient city of Uruk, once a thriving Sumerian metropolis, some scholars believe that large archives of Sumerian texts existed but have vanished entirely, never to be found. Did these lost manuscripts contain knowledge so valuable, so potentially dangerous that they were deliberately erased? The notion of lost texts goes beyond mere physical disappearance. Some have proposed that certain Sumerian manuscripts may have been deliberately suppressed or hidden from the public eye. As we know, throughout history, knowledge has often been a source of power. Could there have been forces in ancient Sumer, or later civilizations, that sought to control or obscure certain information by destroying or concealing texts that contradicted established beliefs or threatened the existing social order?
For instance, some fringe theories suggest that the Sumerian manuscripts contained knowledge of extraterrestrial beings, especially the so-called Anunnaki. If certain texts recorded encounters or teachings from beings from the stars, as some believe, could these manuscripts have been deliberately destroyed to keep such extraordinary revelations from the public eye? Is it possible that the Sumerians had knowledge of advanced technologies, astronomical phenomena, or otherworldly encounters that were too advanced for their time and too dangerous to be shared with later generations? There are also rumors of secret archives hidden beneath ancient Sumerian temples, libraries or vaults that may have held undiscovered manuscripts for millennia. These theories are fueled by the idea that Sumerian religious sites, like the Ziggurats, served not only as places of worship, but also as centers of knowledge and learning. If these manuscripts contained sacred or esoteric wisdom, could they have been deliberately hidden away by religious authorities? After all, many ancient cultures were known to have stored their most important writings in temples, where they could be kept safe from the chaos of war or revolution. Adding to the enigma are the many Sumerian tablets that remain undeciphered. Despite centuries of scholarly work, certain texts remain elusive, their meanings obscured by incomplete translations or undecoded symbols. These texts, which could range from legal documents to scientific treatises to religious hymns, may hold answers to questions we have yet to ask. What were the Sumerians really trying to convey about the cosmos, the divine, and their place in the world? Could there be a hidden message or a deeper layer of understanding that has yet to be unlocked? Some have speculated that the lost manuscripts might even be more than just forgotten texts. they might represent a lost form of knowledge altogether. Could the Sumerians have been in possession of a form of writing or communication that we no longer recognize, one that goes beyond the cuneiform script we've come to know? Could there be records hidden in a code so sophisticated that even modern linguists struggle to understand it? As we continue to uncover more tablets and fragments of ancient Sumerian writings, the question of what has been lost becomes even more pressing. What other texts have been destroyed, hidden, or simply vanished over time? What might they reveal about the Sumerians, about their knowledge of the world, their beliefs, and their interactions with forces we can scarcely imagine? Each new discovery raises more questions, and as the sands of time continue to shift, we may never fully uncover the complete story. In the end, the mystery of the lost Sumerian manuscripts remains unresolved. Yet, it is a mystery that beckons us to look deeper, to question the narratives we have inherited, and to wonder what truths still lie buried waiting to be uncovered. The night sky above ancient Sumer was more than a canvas of stars. It was a vast, living map guiding the people below. As they looked up, they saw not only constellations but cosmic forces at work, forces that shaped their daily lives, their religious rituals, and even their understanding of the universe itself. The Sumerians, long before any modern telescopes or advanced technologies, had a profound understanding of astronomy. Their knowledge of the heavens was so precise, so advanced, that it continues to puzzle scholars to this day. The Sumerian civilization, one of the earliest and most sophisticated cultures in human history, existed in the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Yet, despite their lack of modern tools, they created some of the earliest records of celestial observations. The cuneiform tablets that have survived offer us glimpses of a people who could predict celestial events, chart the movements of planets, and even develop systems to measure time with remarkable accuracy. The Sumerians' interest in the cosmos was not merely academic, it was deeply spiritual. The stars, planets, and constellations were seen as the homes of their gods. The heavens were a divine realm, where cosmic forces intersected with human affairs. For them, the movement of planets and stars wasn't just a natural phenomenon. It was a reflection of the gods' will, guiding the fate of kingdoms and individuals alike. But how did the Sumerians acquire such knowledge? Their understanding of the cosmos appears far beyond what would be expected of a civilization that lacked telescopes or advanced instruments. The Sumerian texts describe an intricate system of astrology, one that records the movements of the moon, the sun, and the 5 visible planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These celestial bodies, the Sumerians believed, were not just objects to be observed. They were forces of nature with the power to influence human life. The most fascinating aspect of Sumerian astronomy is their knowledge of the cycles of the planets. The Sumerians had a precise understanding of the synodic period, the time it takes for a planet to return to the same position relative to the Sun. For example, they knew that Venus has a cycle of about 584 days, a number remarkably close to the true value of 583.92 days. Similarly, their calculations for the orbital periods of Mars and Jupiter were surprisingly accurate, given the technology of the time. How did the Sumerians, with no telescopic instruments or advanced mathematics, come to these precise measurements? Some scholars suggest that their observations were the result of centuries of careful watching and recording of the heavens passed down through generations. However, others speculate that the Sumerians might have had access to lost knowledge, an ancient understanding of the cosmos that has since been lost to history. Could there have been an advanced astronomical system, possibly even extraterrestrial in origin, that informed their observations? One of the most intriguing aspects of Sumerian astronomy is their depiction of the star gods, figures that are associated with specific constellations or celestial bodies. These gods, like the Anunnaki, are believed to have come from the heavens, descending to Earth to impart knowledge to the Sumerians. But could the star gods be more than just mythological figures? Could they represent a deeper, perhaps even more literal connection between the Sumerians and the cosmos? Some theories suggest that these gods were not gods at all, but rather advanced beings who visited the Earth from distant stars, bringing with them knowledge of astronomy and celestial navigation. The Sumerian tablets contain a wealth of information about their belief in the relationship between the heavens and the earth. The most famous of these is the Enuma, Anu, Enlil, a series of texts that record celestial omens and the divinatory practices associated with them. This complex system of astrology was used to predict everything from the success of harvests to the outcomes of battles. The Sumerians believed that the movements of the stars and planets had a direct influence on their lives, and they used these omens to make decisions about everything from politics to religion. One particularly curious aspect of Sumerian astronomy is their knowledge of the Nibiru phenomenon. In Sumerian texts, Nibiru is often described as a mysterious planet or celestial body that travels through the solar system, causing cosmic upheaval. The most famous mention of Nibiru is in the Enuma, Anu, Enlil, where it is associated with a large, wandering star or planet. Some fringe theorists have suggested that Nibiru is not merely a mythological object, but a real planet or celestial body that the Sumerians observed in the skies. Could Nibiru be the same planet that modern scientists refer to as Planet 9, a hypothetical planet beyond Neptune, whose gravitational influence could explain certain anomalies in the solar system? But Nibiru's mysteries don't end there. The concept of a wandering planet, one that moves in and out of the solar system, has led to much speculation over the years. Some believe that Nibiru may have played a significant role in ancient Sumerian beliefs about the Anunnaki, a race of gods that, according to certain interpretations, came from this distant planet. The theory suggests that the Anunnaki were not just gods, but beings from another world who visited Earth in ancient times, imparting knowledge to the Sumerians, and perhaps even influencing their development. Could the Sumerians have been tracking the movements of Nibiru, observing its periodic approach to Earth, and recording its impact on the planet? The idea of celestial beings visiting Earth is not unique to Sumerian mythology. In fact, many ancient cultures have legends of gods or visitors from the stars who shaped human civilization. From the ancient Egyptians to the Mayans, the idea of cosmic intervention is a recurring theme. What if the Sumerians' advanced knowledge of astronomy was not simply the result of observation, but of something more profound? Could they have been the recipients of ancient wisdom passed down from extraterrestrial visitors? Or, more simply, did their observations represent an ancient understanding of the natural world, one that modern science is still struggling to fully comprehend? As we delve deeper into the astronomical knowledge of the Sumerians, we are left with more questions than answers. Their understanding of the heavens was far ahead of their time, and the knowledge they possessed seems to have been passed down with remarkable precision. But what was the source of this knowledge? Was it the result of centuries of careful observation, or was there something, or someone else, guiding their understanding of the stars? As we look to the stars today, the mysteries of the Sumerian sky continue to inspire wonder and curiosity. What if, as the Sumerians believed, the answers to the universe are written in the stars, waiting for us to unlock their secrets? The enigma of their astronomical knowledge remains unsolved, and it beckons us to keep looking upward, seeking the hidden truths of a civilization whose understanding of the cosmos may still be beyond our grasp. The ancient Sumerians, despite being far removed from the technological marvels we associate with modern space exploration, possessed an understanding of the cosmos that continues to astonish and mystify scholars. Long before the first telescopes or the age of rockets, they were observing the heavens with incredible precision, and their observations were often tied to a framework of space science that was as advanced as it was enigmatic. Their knowledge of the stars, planets, and celestial phenomena reveals an intellectual sophistication that challenges the conventional view of ancient societies as primitive or rudimentary. The Sumerians did not simply look at the night sky with wonder. They studied it, charted it, and incorporated it into their daily lives, their religious practices, and their understanding of the universe. They crafted an intricate system of astronomy that not only guided their agricultural cycles and religious rituals, but also aligned with the movement of celestial bodies in ways that seem almost too precise for their era. But how did they develop this knowledge? Was it based purely on observation, or could there have been other influences at play? The Sumerians' most well-known contribution to space science was their invention of a highly accurate calendar system. They observed the cycles of the moon with remarkable precision, creating a lunar calendar that was used to track the passage of time. This calendar wasn't merely a tool for organizing the year, it was a reflection of their deep understanding of the natural rhythms of the universe. The Sumerians divided the year into 12 lunar months, each corresponding to the phases of the moon. They even devised a system for tracking the movements of Venus, which they considered to be the most important celestial body after the sun and the moon. The careful recording of the movements of planets and stars was no simple task. To track the cycles of celestial bodies with such precision required an exceptional level of knowledge of their orbits, their positions in the sky, and their relationship to one another. And yet the Sumerians did this without the benefit of telescopes, space probes, or any modern technology. How were they able to achieve such accuracy, and why was it so important to them? The answer lies in their religious worldview. The Sumerians believed that the heavens were the realm of the gods, and that the movements of the stars and planets were not random, but rather part of a divine order that governed their lives. The Sumerian gods were thought to reside in the stars, with each major celestial body associated with a different deity. Venus, for instance, was linked with Inanna, the goddess of love and war, while the planet Mars was connected to Nergal, the god of war and death. The movement of these planets wasn't just a matter of interest. It was seen as a reflection of divine will, guiding the fate of individuals and entire nations. This connection between the gods and the stars gave rise to a form of space science that wasn't merely about observing and recording. It was also about interpreting and predicting. The Sumerians were keen astronomers, but they were also astrologers, believing that the positions of the stars and planets had a direct influence on human affairs. Their knowledge of the heavens was used not only to chart the seasons, but also to guide important decisions, from the timing of harvests to the fate of kings. In a sense, they were applying space science to the real-world problems they faced every day. But the Sumerians' relationship with space science went beyond simple celestial observations. Some texts suggest that they had an understanding of the stars that goes beyond mere divination or timekeeping. The Mulapen tablets, for example, which are among the oldest known Sumerian astronomical texts, describe in great detail the positions and movements of stars, constellations, and planets. These records contain advanced astronomical data, including knowledge of the zodiac and the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon that wasn't fully understood by Western astronomers until the time of Hipparchus, nearly 1,000 years later. How could the Sumerians have known about this complex astronomical phenomenon? Was it simply the result of centuries of careful observation, or was there something more to their understanding of space science? One of the most perplexing aspects of Sumerian astronomy is their detailed records of celestial events, such as eclipses and planetary conjunctions. The Sumerians kept extensive records of these events, sometimes documenting them with a level of precision that rivals modern astronomical charts. For example, the Enuma Anu Enlil, a series of Sumerian texts, is filled with omens based on lunar and solar eclipses. These records were used to interpret the will of the gods and to make predictions about the future. But what's truly remarkable is how accurately the Sumerians were able to predict these events. Their eclipse observations were so precise that modern astronomers have been able to use them to reconstruct the dates of ancient eclipses, providing a valuable tool for dating historical events. So, how did the Sumerians acquire such knowledge? Some scholars argue that it was the result of keen observation over many generations, with each successive culture building upon the records of the previous one. Others, however, have suggested that the Sumerians' astronomical insights may have been influenced by more extraordinary sources. Some fringe theories propose that the Sumerians were in contact with extraterrestrial beings who imparted advanced knowledge of the cosmos. These theories often point to the Anunnaki, the enigmatic gods of Sumerian mythology, who were believed to have descended from the heavens. According to these theories, the Anunnaki might have shared their advanced understanding of space science with the Sumerians, enabling them to achieve their remarkable astronomical feats. While there is no concrete evidence to support these theories, they add another layer of intrigue to the already mysterious story of Sumerian space science. Could the knowledge the Sumerians possessed have come from an outside source? Could the movements of the stars and planets have been more than just a matter of celestial mechanics? They may have been a guide to something far more profound? Perhaps the Sumerians understood the cosmos in a way that we have yet to fully grasp, using space science not only for practical purposes, but also as a window into deeper truths about the universe. The Sumerians' advanced understanding of space science leaves us with more questions than answers. How did they acquire their knowledge? What did they truly understand about the cosmos? And what, if anything, might they have known about the broader universe that has been lost to time? As we continue to explore these ancient mysteries, one thing is certain. The Sumerians were not mere stargazers. They were space scientists, charting the heavens with precision and purpose, and the secrets they uncovered might still be waiting to be discovered, hidden among the ancient tablets that continue to emerge from the sands of Mesopotamia. In the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers gave birth to one of the first great civilizations, time was more than just a fleeting concept. It was a structured, meticulously measured rhythm that governed every aspect of life. The Sumerians, who are often regarded as the inventors of the first writing system, also developed one of the earliest and most sophisticated methods of tracking time, the Sumerian Calendar. The Sumerian Calendar was no ordinary timekeeping system. It was a combination of lunar and solar cycles that served as a framework for everything from agriculture to religion, and even to the fate of kings. At its core, the Sumerians understood that time wasn't simply about the passing of days. It was about aligning human activity with the larger rhythms of the cosmos. But what was it that made the Sumerian calendar so remarkably accurate, even by modern standards? How did they develop such a sophisticated method for marking the passage of time? And why does it continue to puzzle historians today? The calendar was primarily lunar, based on the phases of the moon. Each month was defined by the cycle of the moon, its waxing and waning from new moon to full moon, a period of roughly 29.5 days. This gave the Sumerians a precise method for organizing the year into months. But here's where things become more complex. The lunar year, which consists of 12 lunar months, totals only 354 days, falling short of the solar year by about 11 days. To reconcile this gap between the lunar and solar years, the Sumerians employed an intricate system of intercalation, adding extra months to bring the calendar in alignment with the solar cycle. This system of adding a 13th month every few years was not only a remarkable feat of astronomical observation, but it also reflected a deeper, almost intuitive understanding of celestial mechanics. To the modern observer, this intercalation might seem like a simple adjustment, but to the ancient Sumerians it represented a profound understanding of how the heavens governed the cycles of time. Their careful attention to the movements of the moon and the sun demonstrates a connection to the cosmos that transcends mere observation. The calendar was their way of organizing life around these celestial rhythms, grounding every ritual, festival, and agricultural task in the natural order of the universe. However, the mystery begins to deepen when we look beyond the mechanics of the Sumerian calendar. The months were named after gods, and their meanings reflected the intertwining of timekeeping with religious belief. Each month was dedicated to a specific deity or celestial event, reinforcing the Sumerians' belief that time itself was divinely orchestrated. Their festivals, based on this calendar, were not only a way to mark the passage of time, but also a way to honor the gods who governed those cycles. But what of the actual structure of the calendar itself? While it's clear that the Sumerians were using a lunar system, their ability to calculate and predict celestial events, such as eclipses and planetary conjunctions, was nothing short of extraordinary. Their understanding of these phenomena was far beyond what one might expect from a civilization without advanced tools. The Enuma, Anu, Enlil, a series of Sumerian texts devoted to celestial omens, demonstrates that the Sumerians were not just observing the heavens, but were actively recording and predicting these events with incredible accuracy. They knew when eclipses would occur, and could even forecast the alignments of planets like Venus and Jupiter, facts that modern astronomy only came to grasp thousands of years later. So how did they acquire this knowledge? Some historians argue that the Sumerians' ability to predict celestial events was the result of thousands of years of careful observation, passed down through generations. The constant tracking of the stars, the moon, and the planets could have been observed by countless generations of scribes and priests. Yet there's something unsettlingly advanced about their understanding, leading some to wonder, could this knowledge have been shared with them by sources beyond the earth? While mainstream scholars attribute the Sumerians' achievements to a slow and cumulative process of observation, some fringe theories posit that the Sumerians might have had access to more advanced, even extraterrestrial knowledge. Could it be that the Sumerian calendar, with its remarkable accuracy and its alignment with celestial cycles, was part of a larger, hidden framework of cosmic knowledge? Some have even suggested that the Sumerians were receiving guidance from advanced beings, or perhaps were simply tapping into a deep, esoteric understanding of the universe that has been lost to history. These theories often point to the Anunnaki, the mysterious gods of Sumerian lore, as the potential source of this wisdom. The Anunnaki, it is suggested, could have shared astronomical insights that far outstripped the capabilities of the Sumerians at the time. Such ideas remain speculative and unprovable, but they add an intriguing layer to the story of the Sumerian calendar. Perhaps the Sumerians were not simply recording the passage of time, they were tapping into a deeper cosmic order that remains hidden from us. This would explain their precise knowledge of eclipses, the movements of the planets, and the intricate intercalation system they developed to align their calendar with both lunar and solar cycles. However, there is another, more grounded explanation. It's possible that the Sumerians, through their religious rituals and their close relationship with the priesthood, were able to develop methods of astronomical observation that were passed down with remarkable accuracy. Their ability to calculate the lunar cycles, track planetary positions, and predict eclipses might have been the result of thousands of years of cumulative knowledge, refined through generations of careful study. Still, the precision of their calendar and their ability to integrate it so seamlessly with their religious beliefs suggests that the Sumerians saw time not just as a tool for measurement, but as something much more profound, a cosmic order, divinely structured, that mirrored the rhythms of the heavens. Could this ancient understanding of time have been a key to their connection with the gods? And could their methods of intercalation and celestial observation have held secrets we have yet to uncover? What is certain is that the Sumerian calendar remains a remarkable achievement, one that reflects both a deep understanding of the cosmos and an equally deep connection to the divine. As we continue to study the Sumerians' methods of timekeeping, we are left to wonder, what other secrets does their calendar still hold? What truths might be hidden in the pages of their ancient texts, waiting for us to decipher? The answers may be out there, concealed within the rhythms of the universe, as we continue our search for the mysteries that still elude us. In the shadow of the ziggurats and temples that once dominated the Mesopotamian landscape, there was a quiet revolution taking place, a revolution in numbers. While the Sumerians are often celebrated for their contributions to writing and law, their achievements in mathematics are no less impressive. The Sumerian mathematical system, built upon a base 60, sexagesimal framework, stands as one of the most sophisticated and advanced systems of its time. But how did they develop such a complex and precise method for understanding the world around them? The Sumerians' grasp of mathematics was not just practical, it was deeply embedded in their understanding of the cosmos, their economy, and their society. This system was used to measure everything from land to time, to track goods and trade, and to organize the very rhythms of life. The Sumerians didn't simply observe the world, they calculated it. Yet, as we dive deeper into their methods, the mystery of their mathematical knowledge becomes ever more intriguing. Where did this system come from? How did a civilization, without the aid of advanced tools or machinery, come to understand mathematics in such a profound way? The base 60 system, known as sexagesimal, was the cornerstone of Sumerian mathematics. While we, today, use a decimal system based on 10, the Sumerians divided things into groups of 60. Time, for example, was measured in 60-minute hours and 60-second minutes, a legacy that continues in our modern clocks. The reason for this system remains a topic of debate. Some suggest that 60 was chosen because it is divisible by so many factors, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which made it highly useful for division and practical applications. But why did the Sumerians choose this specific number? Could there have been a deeper, perhaps even symbolic, significance to it that we have yet to fully understand? The sexagesimal system enabled the Sumerians to calculate areas, volumes, and geometric shapes with remarkable precision. The clay tablets that have survived from this era reveal complex calculations that demonstrate a deep understanding of basic geometry and arithmetic. Some tablets even include evidence of algebraic methods, suggesting that the Sumerians were not only calculating for practical purposes, but also exploring mathematical concepts that we might consider abstract. The famous Plimpton 322 tablet, for example, displays a table of Pythagorean triples, a series of numbers that, when squared, form perfect right triangles. This tablet, which predates Pythagoras by over 1,000 years, indicates that the Sumerians understood the relationship between the sides of a right triangle, a cornerstone of modern mathematics. It is difficult to imagine how the Sumerians could have stumbled upon such an advanced understanding of geometry and algebra purely through observation and trial and error. Some scholars argue that this was the result of a highly structured education system, one in which priests and scribes were trained to use these mathematical tools for the precise administration of their cities. Others suggest that the knowledge could have been passed down through generations of skilled mathematicians, honing their craft over centuries. Still, there is a persistent question that hangs over these achievements. Did the Sumerians develop this mathematical system entirely on their own? Or could there have been an outside influence? Some fringe theories point to the possibility that the Sumerians' advanced mathematical knowledge was a gift from the gods. The Anunnaki, The celestial beings of Sumerian mythology are often invoked in these theories, as many believe that these gods were not only responsible for the creation of humanity, but also for imparting advanced knowledge to the Sumerians. Could the precise and sophisticated mathematics they developed have been a form of divine knowledge, passed down from higher beings? While this idea remains speculative and unsupported by mainstream archaeology, it continues to fascinate those who explore the mysterious origins of human achievement. Beyond the sexagesimal system, the Sumerians also used their advanced mathematical skills to solve practical problems in their daily lives. They developed complex methods of accounting, which were crucial to the administration of their city-states. Scribes would record the amount of grain, livestock, and other goods that passed through the markets using mathematical formulas. These records were not only vital for trade and taxation, but also helped maintain social order in a civilization that was rapidly growing in size and complexity. But how did they ensure the accuracy of these records? The existence of mathematical tablets with such sophisticated calculations suggests that the Sumerians had developed a highly effective system for verifying and auditing these figures. Was there a dedicated class of accountants and mathematicians whose sole purpose was to ensure the accuracy of these transactions? Another fascinating aspect of Sumerian mathematics is its connection to astronomy. The Sumerians had an intimate relationship with the stars and planets, using their mathematical knowledge to track the movements of celestial bodies with remarkable precision. They developed detailed records of eclipses, planetary alignments, and other astronomical events, many of which were used for divination and to guide religious rituals. These astronomical calculations required a level of precision that would have been impossible without a deep understanding of mathematics. How did the Sumerians align their observations of the heavens with the cycles of time and agriculture? Did their ability to calculate the movements of the stars and planets provide them with a deeper insight into the structure of the universe? Yet, despite their remarkable achievements, there is still much we don't understand about Sumerian mathematics. Why did they choose to focus on the number 60? Was it merely a practical decision, or was there a deeper, perhaps cosmic significance? And what role did their religious beliefs play in shaping their mathematical innovations? Some speculate that the Sumerians saw numbers and mathematics not as abstract concepts, but as part of a divine language, a means to communicate with the gods. Could mathematics have been a form of divine revelation for the Sumerians, a way of tapping into the cosmic order that governed both the heavens and the earth? As we continue to explore the world of Sumerian mathematics, it becomes clear that this is no mere history of numbers. It's a story of a civilization that viewed the world through a different lens, one in which mathematics was not only a tool for measuring the physical world, but also a bridge to understanding the divine. Could the Sumerians' complex mathematical systems hold the key to unlocking further mysteries of their civilization? Or are there secrets buried within their calculations that continue to elude us? As we search for answers, the legacy of Sumerian mathematics remains as enigmatic as ever, offering tantalizing glimpses into a past that is both familiar and unfathomably distant. In the heart of ancient Sumer, where the bustling cities of Uruk, and Lagash flourished, there existed a system of law, one that was both groundbreaking and eerily familiar. Long before modern legal frameworks took shape, the Sumerians had already established a complex set of rules that governed everything from property disputes to criminal acts, from contracts to the very concept of justice itself. The legal systems of Sumer, recorded on clay tablets and inscribed in cuneiform script, provide a window into a world where law and order were integral to the survival of their civilization. But as we delve deeper into their laws and the structure of their society, we are faced with more questions than answers. How did such a sophisticated legal system emerge? What hidden truths might lie beneath the surface of these ancient codes? The most famous of these legal codes is the Code of Ur-Nammu, which predates the more well-known Code of Hammurabi by centuries. Created around 2100 BCE under the reign of Ur-Nammu, king of the third dynasty of Ur, this code is one of the earliest surviving examples of a legal text. Written in Sumerian, it details laws covering a range of subjects, including the regulation of marriage, slavery, property rights, and punishments for various crimes. The very existence of such a code speaks volumes about the Sumerians' desire to establish order in a rapidly expanding society. The Code of Ur-Nammu is striking not only for its detailed provisions, but also for the notion of justice it encapsulates. It introduces the concept of fines as punishment for certain crimes, such as the theft of property, where offenders were required to pay a specified amount of silver or grain as restitution to the victim. The idea that wrongdoers should compensate victims rather than be subjected to excessive punishment marks a clear departure from earlier, more violent forms of retribution seen in other ancient cultures. This principle of restorative justice, where the focus was on repairing harm rather than exacting punishment, was revolutionary, offering a glimpse into the Sumerians' complex views on fairness, equity, and social harmony. Yet, despite the progressive nature of these laws, questions remain. How did these codes evolve? What influenced their structure? And, perhaps most tantalizingly, where did this deep sense of order come from? Was it a result of cultural development over time, or was it imparted by a higher source? Some theories suggest that the origins of Sumerian law may have been divinely inspired. The Sumerians were devout and saw their kings as chosen by the gods to enforce divine will. The laws themselves were often presented as being the will of the gods, a reflection of the divine order that governed the universe. The Code of Ur-Nammu opens with a declaration that the king established justice in the land, suggesting that the king's role was not only political but also religious. Could it be that these laws were not merely the product of human thought, but rather part of a divine revelation that the kings were meant to interpret and enforce? The idea that divine beings might have had a hand in shaping Sumerian laws ties back to the broader question of the relationship between the gods and humans in Sumerian society. The Anunnaki, the deities that played such a central role in Sumerian mythology, were often seen as direct influencers of human affairs, whether in matters of agriculture, politics, or law. The Sumerians believed that their kings were not just secular leaders, but intermediaries between the gods and the people. Could the principles of justice and fairness that emerged in Sumerian law have been a divine gift delivered through the kings who acted as the gods' earthly representatives? While such speculations are alluring, we must also consider the more pragmatic origins of Sumerian law. It's possible that the legal codes were born from the practical necessities of urban life. Sumer was one of the first true urban civilizations, and as cities grew in size and complexity, the need for structured governance and regulation became increasingly urgent. The agricultural surplus, trade, and rise of private property all demanded laws to regulate ownership, inheritance, and contracts. The Sumerians, who were skilled in writing and record-keeping, may have developed their legal system as a response to these practical concerns. Ways to keep peace and stability in a society where the rule of law was the cornerstone of survival. The rise of professional scribes played a significant role in the development and codification of laws. These scribes were responsible for recording legal transactions, ensuring that agreements and contracts were upheld. The fact that many legal documents were inscribed on clay tablets suggests that the Sumerians took great care in preserving their laws for future generations. But could this also point to the fact that the scribes themselves held a certain power within Sumerian society? Were these intellectual elites, skilled in the language of the law, perhaps the true architects of the system? Could they have been the ones responsible for interpreting the divine will of the gods, shaping it into tangible, enforceable codes? Another intriguing aspect of the Sumerian legal system was its inclusion of both social classes and gender. While slavery was a common practice in Sumer, and women were largely excluded from full participation in public life, there are surprising instances where Sumerian legal texts appear to offer a measure of protection and autonomy to women, especially in matters of property ownership and marriage. A woman could inherit property, and there were even provisions for the punishment of men who mistreated their wives. These laws may reflect a complex and evolving understanding of social hierarchy, where individuals, regardless of their gender or status, could still claim certain rights within the legal framework. But how much of this was genuine progress, and how much was a reflection of the evolving power dynamics within Sumerian society? As we turn our attention to criminal justice, the Sumerians developed a system for determining guilt and innocence that was based on the principle of eye for an eye, but with notable differences. The punishments for serious crimes such as murder were often severe, with the death penalty being a common consequence. Yet, in other cases, the punishments were less brutal, relying on fines or compensation. These legal distinctions point to a society that grappled with the balance between retribution and restitution. But as we reflect on the nature of Sumerian criminal law, a chilling question arises. Did the Sumerians, in their quest for justice, ever cross the line into cruelty? Were there elements of their legal practices that reflect a darker side to their societal order? The Sumerian legal system was, by all accounts, revolutionary for its time. It set the stage for future legal developments in the ancient world, influencing neighboring civilizations and leaving a lasting legacy that resonates even today. Yet, as we explore these legal texts and the systems they represent, we are left with more questions than answers. What drove the Sumerians to such an advanced system of governance? Was it born of necessity, divine inspiration, or a combination of both? And how much of their system was a reflection of the gods' will, and how much was shaped by the powerful elites within Sumerian society? As we continue to uncover more about Sumerian law, we can't help but wonder what deeper, perhaps hidden truths are still waiting to be uncovered, truths that may shed light on the true origins of law and justice, not just in Sumer, but in all of human civilization. What we know is only the surface, and what lies beneath, waiting to be discovered, is the mystery that continues to elude us. In the ancient cities of Sumer, beneath the grandeur of temples and ziggurats, a quiet revolution was unfolding, one of healing and health. The Sumerians, known for their incredible innovations in writing, law, and architecture, were also pioneers in the field of medicine. Long before the rise of Greek or Roman medical thought, the Sumerians had begun to unlock the mysteries of the human body and its ailments, laying down the first written records of medical knowledge. But as we delve deeper into their medical practices, we find a perplexing mixture of remarkable discoveries and baffling mysteries. What did they truly know about medicine? How did their knowledge compare to what we understand today? And perhaps more intriguingly, what secrets did they leave behind? Imagine a Sumerian healer standing in a bustling marketplace, surrounded by the noise of merchants and the scent of spices. In their hands, they hold not just the knowledge passed down through generations, but the first inkling of what might become an organized system of medical practice. They were not only priests or herbalists, but also early surgeons, anatomists, and physicians who sought to understand both the physical and spiritual causes of disease. In ancient Sumer, medicine was an intricate blend of the scientific and the supernatural. Illness was often viewed as a punishment from the gods or as the result of malevolent spirits. Yet, even as their religious beliefs guided their understanding of disease, the Sumerians were also experimenting with practical remedies based on observation and trial. One of the most remarkable aspects of Sumerian medicine was their use of written records. Unlike many ancient cultures that relied solely on oral tradition, The Sumerians were the first to inscribe their medical knowledge onto clay tablets. These tablets, some dating back over 4,000 years, provide a window into their diagnostic methods, treatments, and theories about the body. The Sumerians understood that the body was composed of various elements, and they believed that the balance of these elements was key to maintaining health. Their medical texts suggest that they were among the first to identify and record symptoms of diseases, including conditions like fever, respiratory issues, and digestive problems. In their approach to illness, the Sumerians recognized the importance of diet, hygiene, and surgery, elements that form the foundation of modern medical practices. They used a variety of natural substances, such as plants, minerals, and animal products, to create remedies. Some of these substances were applied topically, while others were ingested as medicines or used in poultices. In fact, the Sumerians may have been among the first to recognize the medicinal properties of certain herbs. Records indicate that they used everything from garlic and myrrh to the resin of the juniper tree to treat a wide range of ailments. Perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of Sumerian medicine was their approach to surgery. Evidence suggests that Sumerian physicians had a working knowledge of human anatomy and were capable of performing complex surgical procedures. Trepanation, the practice of drilling or cutting into the skull to treat head injuries or mental illness, was known in Sumer. But what is truly baffling is the fact that they seem to have had an understanding of infection and the need for cleanliness during such procedures. How did they, with their primitive tools and lack of advanced scientific knowledge, come to grasp such concepts that would not be fully understood in the West until thousands of years later? The medical texts from ancient Sumer also reveal a surprising level of sophistication when it came to diagnostics. The Sumerians were keen observers of the human body and its symptoms. They categorized diseases and even seemed to understand that some conditions were linked to genetic or environmental factors. In one of their medical texts, the Diagnostic Handbook, they outlined various diseases along with their symptoms, offering treatments based on their observations. They recorded how to identify fever and the best ways to treat wounds, as well as methods for relieving pain and reducing swelling. It is remarkable to consider that, in an era when the majority of the world's population had limited access to medical care, the Sumerians were among the first to attempt to classify and treat diseases in a methodical way. But it's here, in the realm of their knowledge, that the true mysteries begin to emerge. The Sumerians not only recognized the physical aspects of disease, but also the supernatural forces that were believed to influence human health. In their world, illness was often seen as the result of divine punishment or the wrath of spirits. Rituals, incantations, and prayers were frequently used in conjunction with physical remedies. Temples dedicated to healing gods like Gula, the goddess of healing, were not just places of worship, but also centers of medical care, where physicians and priests would work together to diagnose and treat patients. Could it be that Sumerian healers understood something about the spiritual and physical connection that modern medicine is only beginning to explore? Were their cures more holistic than we realize, incorporating not only physical remedies but also a deeper understanding of the mind-body connection? Some scholars have suggested that the Sumerians might have been more in tune with the concept of emotional and psychological healing than many ancient cultures. But how much of this was rooted in mysticism, and how much was grounded in a genuine understanding of the body's natural healing processes? Adding to the intrigue is the Sumerians' use of magical treatments, which included spells and incantations aimed at expelling evil spirits or calming angry gods. These treatments, seemingly outlandish to modern sensibilities, may have had a psychological effect on patients, as the power of belief and ritual could help alleviate symptoms or offer comfort in times of distress. Yet, is there more to these practices than meets the eye? Could there have been some sort of ancient knowledge behind these rituals? Perhaps a knowledge lost to time or misunderstood by later civilizations? Among the many unanswered questions surrounding Sumerian medicine is the remarkable precision they seem to possess in their understanding of anatomy and surgical procedures. Some medical texts suggest that the Sumerians were not just healing external injuries, but that they may have also possessed a form of rudimentary knowledge of internal organs and the circulatory system. How did they acquire this knowledge? Was it purely the result of observation, or could there have been external influences, be they from contact with other civilizations, ancient knowledge passed down through secretive means, or perhaps even knowledge that was not of human origin? As we trace the origins of Sumerian medicine, we are left with more questions than answers. What other mysteries might lie hidden in the thousands of fragments of clay tablets yet to be deciphered? Could there be even deeper knowledge about the human body and its health that the Sumerians discovered but never fully explained? Did their understanding of medicine go beyond what we can now comprehend, offering secrets of life and death that still elude modern science? The Sumerians, it seems, left behind not just a record of their achievements but also a vast, untapped reservoir of mysteries, ones that may hold the key to unlocking answers to questions that have persisted for millennia. So, as we continue to unravel the layers of ancient Sumerian knowledge, we must ask, what truths about the human body and its mysteries are still waiting to be discovered? And perhaps, what did the Sumerians know that has been lost to time, buried within the sands of history, waiting to be uncovered once again? The answers, as always, remain just beyond our reach. Beneath the ancient dust of Mesopotamia lies an enigma that has confounded historians, archaeologists, and engineers for centuries. The Sumerians, creators of the first known civilization, left behind monumental structures, sophisticated systems, and a legacy that continues to inspire awe. Yet, there is a mystery that lingers in the shadow of their achievements, a mystery that pertains not to the tangible accomplishments they achieved, but to the technology they may have possessed and lost to time. As the Sumerian cities of Nippur, and Lagash flourished, their people made remarkable strides in fields like astronomy, agriculture, and mathematics. But as advanced as they were for their time, there are hints in the ancient records that suggest the Sumerians might have possessed technologies far beyond what we can presently explain. It's not merely their written records or their grand architectural feats that spark curiosity. It's the peculiar absence of technologies that we might have expected from such an advanced civilization. What if the Sumerians didn't just create the first wheel or the first city-state, but something far more extraordinary? Technologies that could have changed the course of history? One of the most fascinating aspects of the Sumerians was their ability to craft monumental structures, particularly their ziggurats. These towering temples, dedicated to their gods, were constructed with astounding precision and scale. The most famous of them, the Ziggurat of Uruk, rises more than 100 feet above the plains, its massive mud brick layers remaining intact for millennia. Yet, when we consider the primitive tools available to the Sumerians, the sheer scale and sophistication of these constructions seem almost impossible. How did they manage to build such structures without advanced machinery? Was there a forgotten technology that allowed them to move such massive stones and brickwork with ease? Was there a method of construction that has been lost, one that could shed light on their almost miraculous architectural feats? Even more intriguing are the artifacts that seem to defy conventional explanations. Take, for example, the so-called Sumerian batteries, small clay jars discovered in Mesopotamia that some believe may have been used to generate electricity. These jars, which date back to around 250 BCE, contain a copper cylinder and an iron rod, components that resemble the basic structure of a galvanic cell, the principle behind the modern battery. Could these ancient artifacts have been used to produce electrical energy? The mainstream explanation dismisses these objects as mere storage vessels or ceremonial items, yet there are those who argue that their design suggests a different purpose, perhaps one rooted in advanced knowledge of electrochemistry. Was it possible that the Sumerians, in their enigmatic wisdom, had some understanding of electricity? Or could there be another explanation entirely for the design of these artifacts? Another mystery lies in the Sumerian use of metalwork. The Sumerians were accomplished metallurgists, crafting intricate jewelry, weapons, and tools from copper, gold, and silver. Yet it's their ability to forge metal alloys like bronze, well before its widespread use in other cultures, that raises questions. How did they manage to create such precise alloys, and what techniques did they use to extract and refine metals from ores? Bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, was revolutionary for its durability and versatility, yet the exact methods employed by the Sumerians remain elusive. Some have speculated that they may have used an advanced form of smelting or other now forgotten techniques to create such alloys. Could they have known methods for metalworking that were lost? And if so, what else might they have discovered in the realm of material science? There are also curious references in Sumerian texts to technologies that, if true, would drastically alter our understanding of ancient innovation. The Epic of Gilgamesh, for instance, mentions the breath of life and references the creation of artifacts that seem eerily modern, such as a boat of the gods, capable of navigating vast distances. In one of the most cryptic passages, the text speaks of the Great Flood, an event that wiped out much of humanity. While many interpretations focus on the mythological elements of the story, some researchers have pointed to the possibility that the flood narrative could be a metaphor for the loss of advanced knowledge that had been passed down through generations and then vanished, as if washed away by a great deluge. Was there an advanced technological civilization in Sumer that left behind only fragments of its once great achievements? The most perplexing aspect of these potential discoveries is the absence of the physical evidence that would typically accompany such advanced technology. Why did the Sumerians, if they truly possessed such knowledge, fail to leave behind tools, devices, or structures that might help us better understand their lost technologies? Was it that the knowledge was deliberately hidden or destroyed, perhaps by a catastrophic event? Or did the Sumerians themselves lose the keys to their own advanced innovations over time? And if so, what was the nature of the event that led to such a loss? Was it a natural disaster, an invasion, or simply the erosion of knowledge that occurs over the passage of generations? Some scholars have suggested that the knowledge of these lost technologies may have been handed down to later civilizations, such as the Babylonians or the Egyptians, who in turn passed it on to the Greeks and Romans. Could the Sumerians' understanding of certain technologies like metallurgy or complex engineering have been preserved in a diluted form? Perhaps their successors used these technologies, but the origins of their true source were forgotten, lost to the shifting sands of time. Others have proposed that the Sumerians may have had contact with civilizations from beyond the known world, perhaps from distant lands or even from outer space. Theories of ancient astronauts, or beings from other worlds, have been suggested as the explanation for the sudden leap in technological and architectural prowess in ancient Mesopotamia. While these theories remain highly speculative, they do raise interesting questions. Could the Sumerians have received knowledge from an external source that was simply too advanced for their time? If this were the case, how much of their technology and knowledge truly belonged to them, and how much came from mysterious outside influences? As we ponder the legacy of the Sumerians, one thing becomes clear. Their civilization was far more advanced than we can fully comprehend. The fragments of their lost technologies leave us with tantalizing clues, but the full picture remains elusive. Whether these lost innovations are the result of a forgotten era of genius or something far more mysterious is something we may never know for sure. What is certain, however, is that the mystery of Sumerian technology continues to captivate and intrigue. The questions they left behind are as vast as the deserts they once ruled, and the answers, hidden beneath the sands of time, may never fully come to light. So, as we continue to unearth these ancient mysteries, we are left with a profound question. What could the Sumerians have truly known? And perhaps more hauntingly, what secrets did they leave behind, locked away in time, awaiting discovery by those who dare to search for them? Beneath the scorching sun of ancient Mesopotamia, a civilization was born, one that would leave behind a legacy so complex it continues to captivate and bewilder modern scholars. The Sumerians, whose city-states rose along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, built monumental structures and developed systems of writing, law, and science that still form the foundations of our understanding of the ancient world. Yet, hidden within their stories and myths is a concept that has raised questions for centuries: the Anunnaki. In the Sumerian pantheon, the Anunnaki were revered as powerful gods who descended from the heavens to rule over humanity. But beyond the realm of mythology, these deities take on a more puzzling role. According to Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki were not just divine figures. They were also depicted as beings of immense power and knowledge, possibly even having a hand in the creation of humanity itself. As we dig deeper into their connection to Sumerian culture, one question lingers. Could these gods have also been instrumental in the construction of some of the world's most astounding ancient structures, including the iconic pyramids? The question of pyramid construction is one that has long mystified historians and archaeologists. The ancient Egyptians, who erected the Great Pyramid of Giza, a structure that remains one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, are often credited with creating these awe-inspiring edifices. Yet, the methods they used to construct these massive stone monuments are shrouded in mystery. The sheer scale of the undertaking, the precision of the stonework, and the alignment with astronomical bodies all suggest that the builders possessed a level of knowledge and technology far beyond what we would expect for a civilization of their time. Could the Sumerians, or the Anunnaki, have had something to do with this knowledge? Some alternative theorists speculate that the Anunnaki were not merely gods, but ancient extraterrestrial beings who imparted advanced technological knowledge to early human civilizations. According to this theory, the construction of the pyramids may not have been solely the work of human hands. The idea that the Anunnaki played a role in the pyramid construction draws upon the same mythological themes found in Sumerian texts, where the gods were said to have intervened in human affairs, teaching them various skills, from agriculture to metallurgy, and perhaps even advanced construction techniques. In the ancient Sumerian city of Uruk, one of the earliest and most powerful city-states, the Anunnaki were said to have descended to Earth, imparting their knowledge to humanity. The epic tales of these gods often depict them as having a profound understanding of science, engineering, and celestial movements. But could they have provided the knowledge or even the technological means to construct massive stone monuments like the pyramids? The lack of definitive evidence regarding the methods used to build the pyramids leaves room for speculation. Could the precise engineering and alignment with stars have been a gift from these so-called gods, or was it simply the result of human ingenuity? A key aspect of this theory is the mysterious and often debated Sumerian texts, including the Enuma Elish, which describe the Anunnaki as coming from the heavens, possibly from another planet in our solar system such as Nibiru, a planet that some theorists believe to have been the Anunnaki's home. These texts, while mythological in nature, have been interpreted by some to contain hidden references to ancient astronauts, beings that might have possessed knowledge of space travel and advanced technology far beyond the capabilities of early humans. If this were true, could it explain the sudden leap in construction and engineering skills found in Sumerian and Egyptian culture? The idea that the Sumerians had access to extraterrestrial technology is certainly controversial. Yet, some intriguing evidence could lend credence to this hypothesis. The Sumerians' astronomical knowledge, for example, was far more advanced than their contemporaries. They developed sophisticated methods for tracking the stars, planets, and constellations, and even created a detailed calendar system that is strikingly accurate. Could this understanding of celestial mechanics have been influenced by knowledge passed down from the Anunnaki, or even by extraterrestrial visitors who left their mark on humanity's early development? One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the possible involvement of the Anunnaki in pyramid construction comes from the study of ancient texts and artifacts. Among the Sumerian tablets, there are numerous references to a race of deities who possessed superior knowledge. Some texts describe these gods as capable of manipulating matter or using mysterious tools to perform feats that would have been unimaginable for ancient humans. If the Anunnaki had such power, could they have been responsible for guiding or even physically assisting in the construction of monumental structures like the pyramids? It's important to note, however, that mainstream archaeology offers a different interpretation of the pyramid building process. The conventional view is that the Egyptians, with their remarkable skills in engineering and organization, constructed the pyramids using simple tools and techniques over the course of several decades. Yet the mystery remains. How did they manage to move massive stone blocks, each weighing several tons, with such precision? Could they have done so without access to more advanced technology or techniques? Or, as some theorists suggest, did they have help? Whether from the Anunnaki, as some believe, or from another, now lost source of knowledge. The debate continues, with some insisting that the Sumerian gods, including the Anunnaki, were merely symbolic figures, mythological representations of natural forces or human qualities, while others argue that the evidence points to a far more complex and possibly extraterrestrial involvement. There are even those who suggest that the pyramids themselves may contain hidden clues, with their precise alignment to the stars or their internal chambers perhaps serving as markers of a knowledge that has long been forgotten. Could these enigmatic structures contain messages or symbols that speak to a more advanced civilization's role in their creation? While the mainstream narrative leans towards a purely human achievement in the construction of the pyramids, the mysteries surrounding their design and purpose suggest that there is still much we do not understand. Could it be that the Anunnaki, these gods of ancient Sumer, were not only the creators of humanity, but also the architects of the grandest monuments of the ancient world? The gap between myth and history remains wide, and with every new discovery, we inch closer to understanding just how far the ancient Sumerians and their gods may have reached. Could the truth, hidden beneath centuries of sand and stone, hold the key to unraveling the deepest mysteries of our past? As we continue to explore these ancient mysteries, one thing is clear: the questions are as vast as the desert sands, and the answers remain elusive. What role did the Anunnaki play in shaping the ancient world? And what secrets do their stories hold about the true origins of humanity's most enduring marvels? The mystery, it seems, is far from over. In the ancient city of Uruk, a bustling metropolis at the heart of Sumer, the clang of metal against metal echoed through the streets. Blacksmiths, their faces grimy with soot, hammered heated chunks of copper, tin, and bronze into tools and weapons that would be traded far and wide. The Sumerians were master metalworkers, skilled in crafting everything from farming implements to intricate jewelry and deadly weaponry. But how did such a small, early civilization come to possess the advanced metallurgical knowledge and resources necessary to produce such vast quantities of metal goods? The trade of metal in ancient Sumer is one of the key pillars of its economy. Sumerians were not just skilled metal workers. They were also strategic traders, navigating long distances to acquire the raw materials that were vital for their industries. The most coveted of these materials were copper and tin, precious resources that were combined to form bronze, an alloy that revolutionized the ancient world. But while copper was abundant in the region, tin was not. How did the Sumerians, with limited access to natural tin deposits, managed to sustain such a large-scale production of bronze tools and weapons? This question remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of ancient trade. It is known that the Sumerians relied on extensive trade networks to acquire the raw materials necessary for metalworking. Archaeological evidence shows that Sumerians traded with distant regions, such as the Indus Valley, Anatolia, and even as far as the Arabian Peninsula. They imported tin from these regions, often in the form of small ingots, which were then combined with copper to create the all-important bronze. But the question arises, how did the Sumerians acquire the knowledge of metallurgy in the first place? And how did they manage to build such a vast trade network in a time when long-distance travel was a rare and arduous task? Some scholars believe that the Sumerians were simply quick learners, discovering the art of metalworking through trial and error. It's possible that the discovery of copper, found naturally in its pure form in the region, led to a slow evolution of techniques. Initially, copper may have been used for simple tools and ornaments, but over time, the Sumerians would have learned to extract metal from ores, creating alloys like bronze. This process, however, would have taken centuries to perfect. The leap from copper to bronze, an alloy with far superior qualities for weaponry and tools, suggests a level of technical sophistication that would have been extraordinary for such an early civilization. However, there is another theory that raises more provocative questions. What if the Sumerians didn't develop their metallurgical skills entirely on their own? Some have speculated that the knowledge of metalworking could have come from an external source, possibly the Anunnaki, the enigmatic deities of Sumerian myth. Could these gods, with their alleged knowledge of advanced technologies, have imparted the secret of metallurgy to humanity? The idea that the Anunnaki might have shared such advanced knowledge has intrigued researchers for decades. After all, the Sumerians themselves described the gods as beings who came down from the heavens, offering humanity not just spiritual guidance but also material advancements. These theories, though speculative, raise important questions about the origins of Sumerian metalworking. Was the development of bronze and other metals truly the result of human ingenuity, or was there a more mysterious influence at play? The Sumerians themselves left behind only cryptic hints in their cuneiform writings, which refer to the gods bestowing various forms of knowledge upon humanity. Among these gifts, could there have been the secrets of metallurgy? Secrets that allowed the Sumerians to create tools and weapons that gave them an unprecedented advantage over their neighbors? To better understand this enigma, we must look at the Sumerian trade networks in greater detail. How did a small city-state like surrounded by arid plains and rugged mountains, become the hub of such a vast trading empire? The Sumerians had access to precious metals like gold and silver, but it was their trade in copper and tin that made them particularly powerful. The discovery of trade routes, such as the overland passage through the Zagros Mountains to the east or the sea routes to the Arabian Gulf, highlights how the Sumerians reached distant lands in search of vital resources. But was this trade the product of a naturally expanding civilization, or was there something more deliberate, perhaps even guided, about it? The evidence of Sumerian metal trade also reveals another intriguing detail: the vast quantities of metal goods they produced and traded. These goods weren't just tools and weapons. They included highly specialized items like ceremonial masks, jewelry, and decorative objects. How did the Sumerians maintain such a high level of craftsmanship while also engaging in mass production? It suggests that their metalworking techniques were highly advanced, incorporating methods that allowed them to produce intricate and precise items on a large scale. Some suggest that these practices may have been influenced by a deeper, possibly forgotten, understanding of metallurgy that was passed down from an unknown source. Then, there's the mystery of the Sumerian sacred metal objects, ornate pieces of gold, silver, and bronze that were buried in royal tombs and temples. These items, often found in extraordinary abundance, hint at a society that had not only mastered metallurgy, but also held it in sacred regard. Could these objects have been more than mere adornments or offerings? Could they have served a more practical purpose, perhaps as keys to understanding lost technologies or as markers of a civilization's advanced knowledge? With the lack of definitive evidence, it's difficult to know for certain what drove the Sumerians' mastery of metallurgy and trade. Could it have been purely the result of human experimentation and discovery? Or, as some have suggested, did the Sumerians possess access to knowledge or even technologies that we have yet to fully comprehend? Could the secrets of metalworking, passed down through the gods or from an unknown ancient source, have played a crucial role in their rise to power? In the end, the story of Sumerian metal trade is one of ingenuity, mystery, and unanswered questions. While we know the basics of their trade routes, the materials they exchanged, and the goods they produced, the deeper origins of their metallurgical prowess remain elusive. Was it the product of cultural evolution, or did the Sumerians have access to something more extraordinary, an ancient knowledge or connection to an advanced civilization that remains hidden in the sands of time? As we continue to explore these unanswered questions, the story of Sumerian metal trade reminds us that the past, though rich in knowledge, still holds many secrets waiting to be uncovered. In the dusty ruins of ancient Sumer, beneath layers of soil and stone, lie thousands of tablets inscribed with symbols. These symbols, etched with meticulous precision in cuneiform script, are the records of a civilization that flourished nearly 5,000 years ago. Some of these tablets reveal the everyday lives of Sumerians, agricultural records, trade transactions, and laws. Yet, within this vast library of written history, there exists a subset of symbols that defy explanation. To this day, there are numerous Sumerian symbols that remain untranslated, symbols whose meaning continues to evade scholars despite centuries of study. Imagine standing in the heart of an ancient Sumerian temple, the stone walls carved with cuneiform. The air is thick with the scent of incense and the echoes of priests offering prayers to the gods. Among the carvings, you spot a series of peculiar symbols, arranged in a pattern that doesn't seem to match the conventional script. These symbols are unlike anything you've seen before, unrecorded in any known lexicon. They seem out of place, as though they hold some deeper significance, something meant to be understood by only a select few. But what do they mean? This question lies at the heart of one of the most enduring mysteries of Sumerian civilization. Despite decades of painstaking decipherment, many symbols remain hidden in plain sight, baffling linguists and archaeologists alike. The most perplexing of these are often seen on artifacts that are not easily categorized: temple walls, sacred relics, and even ceremonial objects. These items seem to have been created for a purpose beyond simple communication. But why did the Sumerians leave behind such enigmatic symbols, and what truths might they reveal about their society, their beliefs, or even their contact with other civilizations? Cuneiform itself was one of the earliest systems of writing in human history, developed by the Sumerians around 3100 BCE. Over time, the script evolved from simple pictographs into a complex system of wedge-shaped symbols pressed into clay tablets. As one of the most advanced and enduring writing systems of its time, cuneiform allowed the Sumerians to record everything from commercial transactions to mythological tales. The majority of Sumerian texts that have survived to the present day are relatively straightforward, offering insight into the daily workings of this ancient society. But there's a fascinating outlier: the untranslated symbols, which appear in isolated contexts and rarely follow the conventional cuneiform rules. Many of these symbols are found on objects that carry significant ritual or religious importance. Could these symbols represent something other than written language? Some scholars suggest that they may be symbolic representations of divine knowledge or cosmic forces, a kind of coded language meant to protect sacred secrets. This theory suggests that the Sumerians, known for their complex pantheon of gods, might have encoded their spiritual and philosophical beliefs in these mysterious symbols, making them accessible only to the initiated. If this is the case, these symbols could be understood as part of an occult or sacred knowledge reserved for those who held the keys to the divine wisdom of the cosmos. Yet, despite numerous attempts at deciphering these symbols, no definitive translation has emerged. Some of the most curious examples of these symbols are found on what are believed to be royal seals, ritualistic tablets, and architectural features of temples and palaces. These objects seem to hint at a hidden narrative, one that doesn't fit neatly into the Sumerian understanding of the world. Could it be that these symbols represent an entirely different language or system of thought, one that existed alongside Sumerian cuneiform but was deliberately kept secret? Or could they be the remnants of an even older language, one that predates the Sumerians and perhaps even the known history of writing itself? One of the more compelling theories surrounding these mysterious symbols involves the idea of ancient knowledge transmission. Some researchers speculate that the Sumerians may have inherited their writing system and the symbols in question from an advanced civilization long lost to history. Could the Sumerians have received this secret knowledge from extraterrestrial beings, as suggested by proponents of ancient astronaut theory? Or could the symbols represent the lost language of an earlier, pre-Sumerian civilization, one that passed down its wisdom in a form so cryptic that it has remained undeciphered for millennia? Another possibility is that these symbols were not meant to be understood by future generations at all. Perhaps they were part of a religious or ritualistic code, intentionally designed to be obscure and indecipherable to outsiders. The Sumerians were deeply religious, and their temples and ziggurats were centers of both spiritual and political power. In such a society, it's conceivable that the use of cryptic symbols was a way of protecting sacred knowledge from common folk or from invading forces. These symbols could have functioned as a kind of safeguard, ensuring that only the elite priesthood or ruling class had access to the deepest, most powerful knowledge of the cosmos. Despite centuries of research, the puzzle of these untranslated symbols remains unsolved. Some symbols have been tentatively identified through comparisons with other ancient scripts, such as Akkadian or Elamite, but these translations are often imprecise, leaving much to the imagination. Occasionally, a breakthrough comes in the form of a newly discovered artifact or a fresh interpretation of a previously overlooked tablet. However, these rare insights only deepen the mystery, as they often lead to more questions than answers. Why do these symbols appear so sporadically, and why are they so stubbornly resistant to translation? As we consider the significance of these mysterious symbols, we must ask ourselves, what might they reveal about the Sumerians' understanding of the world? Could they represent a form of knowledge lost to time, a sacred code that once held the secrets of the universe? Or are they something even more enigmatic, perhaps a language or system of thought that transcends time, challenging our very concept of history and communication? The untranslated symbols of Sumer remain one of the most fascinating puzzles of ancient civilization. They are a testament to the complexity of a people whose written records have survived for millennia. Yet, for all that we know about Sumerian society, these mysterious symbols suggest that there is still much more to uncover, a hidden layer of history that continues to elude us. What other secrets lie beneath these cryptic markings, waiting for the right key to unlock their meaning? As with so many aspects of Sumerian civilization, the answers may be closer than we think, if we can only find the right path forward. In the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a society rose that would shape the very foundations of human civilization. The Sumerians, often considered the world's first true civilization, were led by rulers whose deeds would echo across the ages. Their kings were not mere political figures. They were deified leaders, often seen as intermediaries between the gods and their people. But the true history of these kings, their origins, and the legacies they left behind remain shrouded in mystery, woven with a mix of fact, legend, and enigma. As we peer into the mists of time, the ancient city-states of Sumer stand as symbols of power and sophistication. From Uruk, the first great metropolis, to the Ziggurats of the cities they built were nothing short of monumental, and it was under the rule of kings, figures of divine authority, that these cities flourished. But while their accomplishments were monumental, their lives remain hauntingly elusive. Many of the Sumerian kings were believed to be chosen by the gods, granted divine favor to lead their people. But what is the true nature of this power? Was it spiritual, political, or something else entirely? The king's role in Sumerian society was far from ordinary. These rulers, such as Gilgamesh, Lugal-Zaggisi, and Sargon of Akkad, were seen not only as political leaders, but also as semi-divine beings with a direct connection to the gods. Gilgamesh, perhaps the most famous of all Sumerian kings, was thought to be 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. His legacy is preserved in the Epic of Gilgamesh, an ancient poem that blends myth, history, and the timeless quest for immortality. Yet, even as we read the tales of his adventures, the true figure of Gilgamesh remains clouded by time. Was he a real person, or is he a larger-than-life character born of myth and legend? Similarly, Sargon of Akkad, another towering figure in Sumerian history, is said to have established the first empire in history. His rise to power was no less dramatic than the stories that surround him. According to Sumerian texts, Sargon was born in humble circumstances, a foundling abandoned in a basket, and rose to become the ruler of Akkad through sheer determination and cunning. His reign is noted for uniting much of Mesopotamia under a single banner, but the details of how he accomplished this feat remain tantalizingly unclear. Could Sargon's success have been the result of divine intervention, or was it merely the result of superior military strategy? In fact, the very nature of Sumerian kingship raises more questions than it answers. While the annals of history are filled with the names of these rulers, the exact nature of their power remains elusive. The Sumerians themselves believed that kings were divinely appointed, a belief encapsulated in the concept of the Lugal, the king who was the servant of the gods. The Lugal was tasked with maintaining order, upholding justice, and ensuring that the will of the gods was carried out. But what does it mean to be a king in this sense? Were these rulers true intermediaries between the divine and the mortal? Or were they mere figureheads, their apparent power masking a more complex web of political and social forces? Beyond the recorded history of these rulers, there are strange inconsistencies and gaps in the historical record that fuel speculation. For instance, the Sumerian king list, a key source of information about the succession of Sumerian rulers, lists kings who reigned for impossibly long periods, some for thousands of years. According to the list, the first kings of Sumer ruled for tens of thousands of years before the Great Flood, a biblical event that shares striking parallels with the story of Noah. These records challenge our understanding of time and history. Could they be literal accounts? Or are they symbolic representations of a time so distant that even the Sumerians themselves struggled to grasp it? The ancient Sumerians were meticulous in recording the deeds of their kings, and many of these rulers were commemorated through statues, inscriptions, and monumental architecture. Yet, despite the wealth of material evidence, much of the personal history of these kings remains obscured. What of the many lost kings whose names we can only infer through fragments of texts? Some rulers are mentioned only in passing, their reigns marked by brief notations and enigmatic references. What of these forgotten monarchs? Were they overshadowed by their more famous counterparts, or did they leave behind a legacy that has been lost to time? And then there are the legends. In the case of Gilgamesh, the historical king and the mythological figure become indistinguishable. The epic of Gilgamesh is filled with divine encounters, monsters, and quests for immortality, raising questions about the line between myth and reality in the Sumerian world. Were these stories inspired by true events, or did they evolve into elaborate narratives designed to explain the mysteries of life, death, and the gods? And if these myths are based in some form of historical truth, what do they tell us about the nature of Sumerian kingship? Even the mysterious figure of Lugal-Zaggisi, the last king of Sumer before Sargon's rise, is enshrouded in intrigue. Lugal-Zaggisi's reign was marked by the consolidation of power in the city-state of Uruk. His defeat at the hands of Sargon is often seen as the end of the Sumerian dominance and the rise of Akkadian rule. Yet the details of his rule and his eventual fall remain vague. Was Lugal-Zaggisi a tyrant, a visionary, or a tragic figure undone by forces beyond his control? Adding to the mystique surrounding Sumerian kingship is the fact that many of these rulers are depicted in ways that seem almost supernatural. Their statues, for instance, often feature exaggerated features, larger-than-life faces and imposing postures, imbuing them with an air of divine authority. Could these artistic depictions be more than just a reflection of their power? Could they be symbolic representations of their role as intermediaries between the divine and the mortal world, reinforcing the belief that the king was something more than human? As we peel back the layers of history, the figure of the Sumerian king remains elusive, its true nature hidden behind the veil of myth, legend, and incomplete records. Were these kings truly divine rulers, as the Sumerians believed? Or were they political leaders who used religion to solidify their power? And what about the gaps in the historical record? Are they the result of lost knowledge, or do they represent something more profound, a hint of a forgotten truth waiting to be uncovered? What remains clear, however, is that the kings of Sumer were far more than just rulers. They were the living embodiments of divine order and the stewards of an ancient civilization. As we continue to unravel the mysteries of their reigns, one thing is certain: the true history of Sumerian kings and the mysteries surrounding their power may still hold secrets we are only beginning to comprehend. The ancient lands of Sumer were not just a cradle for civilization, but also a battleground for power, territory, and survival. To understand the full scope of Sumerian history, one must acknowledge the wars that shaped their cities and society. These conflicts, fought over resources, territory, and divine favor, left a lasting mark on the civilization. Yet, even as the Sumerians wrote detailed records of their triumphs and defeats, the full story of their wars remains enigmatic, buried beneath layers of myth, incomplete texts, and conflicting narratives. Sumer was a land of city-states, each fiercely independent and often in competition for dominance. These city-states, Uruk, Lagash, and others, were ruled by kings who claimed divine authority, but that authority was constantly challenged by neighboring cities, tribes, and even internal factions. The military conflicts that arose were not just about conquest, but also about asserting divine will and legitimacy. It was said that the gods themselves waged these wars, using their mortal representatives, the kings, to execute their will on earth. In the epic poems and historical records that have survived, war is presented as both a political and religious endeavor. For instance, the Epic of Gilgamesh portrays Gilgamesh's military campaigns as not only a means of expanding his empire, but also as acts ordained by the gods themselves. Was it truly divine will, or was it the strategic brilliance of the king that brought success on the battlefield? The Sumerian King List, an ancient manuscript detailing the reigns of the kings of Sumer, also tells of early wars that played a central role in shaping the rise and fall of empires. The text recounts the story of the first kings of Sumer, some of whom were said to have ruled for tens of thousands of years before the Great Flood. While the fantastical elements of these stories remain open to interpretation, the notion that these early kings fought wars of both mythological and historical significance remains a consistent theme. However, the real mysteries begin when we dive deeper into the recorded wars of Sumer. One of the earliest and most documented conflicts was the Battle of Uruk in the 27th century BCE, fought between the city of Uruk and the neighboring city of Kish. According to historical texts, this battle was part of the larger conflict over control of trade routes and resources, but its significance went beyond simple territorial conquest. Gilgamesh, the famed king of Uruk, led his people into battle, and the Epic of Gilgamesh immortalizes his victorious return. But what do we truly know about the outcome of this battle? And what impact did it have on the larger political landscape of Sumer? Even more compelling is the Lagash-Umma War, a conflict between the city-states of Lagash and Umma, which was fought over the control of a fertile strip of land between the two cities. The war was sparked by disputes over irrigation rights, and it is one of the few conflicts from this period for which we have both archaeological and textual evidence. In the stele of the vultures, a large limestone slab, King Eannatum of Lagash commemorates his victory over Umma. The stele is adorned with vivid imagery of warriors in battle, showing the king's triumph. But what is not so clear is the ultimate outcome of the war. Did Eannatum's victory result in lasting peace, or was it simply the prelude to more frequent conflicts in the region? As we explore these ancient wars, we are faced with questions that the texts themselves do not answer. For example, the Sumerians were known for their advanced use of military technology, bronze weapons, chariots, and highly organized armies. Yet, how did these early military innovations evolve? The Epic of Gilgamesh presents a world of gods and monsters, yet it's clear that the Sumerians were facing very real human enemies. Could there have been a connection between the mythological elements of the epic and the actual experiences of battle? Or were these myths shaped by the war experiences of the Sumerian people, evolving over time into grand stories of heroism and divine intervention? Then, there's the issue of Sumerian military strategy. Some historians believe that the Sumerians were far ahead of their time in terms of warfare tactics. Their use of fortified cities, organized armies, and sophisticated weaponry suggests a deep understanding of military strategy. But why did they fight? Was it all about survival, or were there other motives at play, such as religious or cultural imperatives? The Sumerians viewed warfare not just as a political necessity, but as something deeply connected to their gods. Did they truly believe their gods were on the battlefield with them? Or was this a symbolic way of legitimizing their military actions? There is also the mystery of the Sumerian army's organizational structure. The surviving records do not offer a complete picture of how these armies were structured. We know that Sumerian kings had elite soldiers, known as the warriors of the Lugal, but the role of these warriors in the larger military apparatus remains unclear. Did Sumerian armies function like modern ones, with a clear hierarchy and division of labor? Or were they more like loosely connected bands of fighters, united under a single leader? As we delve into the mysteries of Sumerian warfare, we come across another peculiar phenomenon, the role of women in battle. In the records, women were sometimes depicted as participating in or even leading military campaigns. The most notable example is the queen of the city of Uruk, who is said to have led her army against rival forces. But how prevalent was this involvement? Did women in Sumerian society take part in the wars as military leaders? Or were these stories merely symbolic? This question remains unresolved, as there is little surviving evidence of women in combat roles beyond these occasional mentions in the texts. Another unexplained aspect of Sumerian warfare is the fate of the prisoners of war. Some texts suggest that captives were either executed or enslaved, but what motivated these decisions? Did the Sumerians see prisoners as valuable resources to be integrated into their societies, or were they viewed solely as enemies to be vanquished? The Stele of the Vultures even depicts King Eannatum of Lagash parading his prisoners in a humiliating procession, an act that suggests a cultural practice tied to the Sumerian view of power and conquest. Yet, as we ponder these questions, we must also consider the larger mysteries surrounding the wars themselves. How much of what we know about Sumerian conflicts is influenced by the passage of time, the evolution of myth, and the biases of the victors? As with many ancient civilizations, the true scale and nature of the wars fought in Sumer are clouded by the veil of history. Were the Sumerian wars as brutal and destructive as they appear in the surviving texts, or were they part of a larger, more complex system of diplomacy, negotiation, and cultural exchange? These unresolved questions point to a deeper mystery, a question not just of Sumerian wars, but of how history is written, remembered, and interpreted. The wars of Sumer were not merely battles for territory, but were intricately tied to the myths and beliefs of the Sumerian people. But what exactly did they believe? What truths lie hidden beneath the surface of these ancient texts waiting for us to uncover? In the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, lies the city of Uruk, a name that resonates through history as one of the most powerful, innovative, and enigmatic urban centers of the ancient world. Uruk was more than just a city. It was a monumental hub of civilization, its influence stretching far beyond its walls, its legacy deeply embedded in the very fabric of human history. Uruk's walls, standing tall and formidable, were a symbol of its might. Built during the early dynastic period of Sumer, they spanned an astonishing length, nearly 6 miles. These walls, constructed with mud brick and reinforced by mighty bastions, were designed not only to protect the city's inhabitants, but to also reflect the strength and divine protection Uruk claimed. But what do these ancient walls truly signify? Were they merely military defenses, or do they hint at something deeper? Perhaps a city on the brink of both an intellectual and spiritual revolution. The city of Uruk flourished around 3000 BCE, marking the dawn of one of the most profound cultural epochs in history. It was here that the Sumerians began to record their history, develop early forms of writing, and create monumental works of art. At the heart of Uruk, we find a symbol of the city's significance: the massive Ziggurat of Uruk, a stepped pyramid-like structure that towered above the city. Dedicated to the goddess Inanna, also known as Ishtar, the Ziggurat was more than just a religious center. It served as a focal point for the entire city's cultural, economic, and political life. But how much do we truly know about the role it played? What secrets might its towering structure conceal? Uruk was also a place where kingship itself took on divine proportions. Gilgamesh, the legendary king of Uruk, is perhaps the most famous figure associated with the city. His name is immortalized in the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest works of literature in human history. But what is the true nature of his reign? The epic paints Gilgamesh as both a hero and a flawed figure, half man, half god. He embarks on quests that take him to the edges of the known world, seeking immortality, divine favor, and wisdom. Yet the mystery lingers. Was Gilgamesh a real historical figure, or is he a mythical construct woven from the fabric of Uruk's earliest kings? The debate over the historical versus mythical Gilgamesh is one of the enduring puzzles surrounding Uruk. Some scholars believe that Gilgamesh may have indeed been a real king, one who lived around the 27th century BCE and whose reign became mythologized over time. Others, however, argue that the stories surrounding Gilgamesh were entirely fictional, designed to elevate the city and its rulers to a near-divine status. The Epic of Gilgamesh itself offers tantalizing glimpses of a world where myth and history intertwine, but separating fact from fiction in the case of Uruk's most famous ruler remains an elusive task. As we peer into Uruk's history, we find a city that was not only a political powerhouse, but also a cultural and technological center of unparalleled significance. It was in Uruk that some of the earliest forms of writing, the cuneiform script, emerged. These wedge-shaped symbols, etched into clay tablets, represent a radical departure from previous methods of communication. The cuneiform script began as a system for keeping records, tracking trade, tribute, and inventories, but it quickly evolved into a medium for storytelling, legal documentation, and even poetry. The Epic of Gilgamesh, preserved in cuneiform on clay tablets, is one of the many texts that survive from Uruk, and it offers us a glimpse into the intellectual and philosophical life of the city. But what is truly remarkable about Uruk's writing system is its complexity. While much of the cuneiform script has been deciphered, some symbols remain stubbornly elusive. These untranslated symbols, found in some of the earliest Uruk-era inscriptions, continue to baffle scholars. Were they part of an early proto-writing system that predated the more standardized cuneiform script, or did they represent a lost language altogether? The Sumerians, with their advanced understanding of writing, seem to have left us a puzzle, a code that still awaits full interpretation. What knowledge might these mysterious symbols unlock? Could they reveal lost aspects of Uruk's society or perhaps a forgotten chapter of Sumerian history? Uruk's rise to prominence was also accompanied by the development of sophisticated trade networks. The city's strategic location along the Euphrates River allowed it to control vital trade routes, connecting it to distant regions like the Indus Valley and Anatolia. The people of Uruk traded everything from textiles to precious metals, and their goods were in high demand across the ancient world. Yet, despite this prosperity, there is still much we do not know about the full extent of Uruk's economic power. Was the city's wealth a result of its trade dominance, or did it also rely on its religious and cultural influence to maintain its position as a center of power? As Uruk flourished, so too did its enigmatic connection to the gods. The Sumerians believed that their rulers were divinely appointed, and that the success of the city was closely tied to the favor of the gods. Inanna, the goddess of love, fertility, and war, was the patron deity of Uruk, and her temple at the city's core was a focal point of religious and civic life. Yet, Inanna's role in the city raises further questions. Was she a purely local goddess, or did her worship in Uruk extend far beyond the city's borders? Some scholars suggest that Inanna's influence was so profound that it helped shape not only Uruk's religious practices but also its political and military power. Could her divine favor have played a role in Uruk's rise as a regional power, or was this connection a later myth, woven into the fabric of Uruk's story? There are also those who speculate that Uruk's power was not just grounded in its religious and economic strength, but in something far more mysterious. Some fringe theories suggest that Uruk may have been the site of ancient technological or even extraterrestrial influence, suggestions that, while unproven, are not entirely without intrigue. The city's advanced architecture, the sudden emergence of complex writing, and its unparalleled influence on neighboring regions all seem to hint at something more, something that the Sumerians themselves may not have fully understood. Could Uruk's architects have possessed knowledge that was far ahead of their time? Was there an unseen hand guiding the city's rise? As we examine the remnants of Uruk, both the physical ruins and the fragments of history that survive in its ancient texts, the mystery of the city only deepens. While we know that it was a place of extraordinary cultural, technological, and religious achievement, the true extent of its influence and the reasons behind its enduring legacy remain unresolved. Was Uruk a city built on divine will, human ambition, or a combination of both? What truths are hidden within the mysterious symbols, legends, and ruins that still echo through the ages? As we continue to uncover the secrets of this ancient metropolis, one thing is certain: Uruk's story is far from finished. Deep within the annals of ancient Mesopotamian literature lies a figure who has become a symbol of both human struggle and divine aspiration: Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk. His name, inscribed on clay tablets and etched into the very fabric of human storytelling, continues to echo through the centuries. Yet, despite his legendary status, the true nature of Gilgamesh, both as a historical figure and as a mythological hero, remains one of the most enduring mysteries of the ancient world. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest known works of literature, offers us glimpses into a world of gods, monsters, and timeless human dilemmas. The poem, preserved in cuneiform on a series of clay tablets, chronicles the exploits of Gilgamesh and his companion, Enkidu, as they embark on epic quests that span the realms of the mortal and the divine. At its core, the epic is a meditation on themes that resonate with every human being: death, friendship, the pursuit of immortality, and the search for meaning in a world governed by the whims of gods and fate. Gilgamesh himself is described as 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, a being who transcends the limitations of mere mortals. This divine nature, however, does not protect him from the same existential fears that plague all men. Early in the epic, Gilgamesh is depicted as a powerful and tyrannical ruler. But as the story unfolds, his encounters with the forces of nature and the gods reveal a much more vulnerable and introspective figure. It is in this vulnerability that the Epic of Gilgamesh finds its most profound expression. The king, in his quest for immortality, ultimately learns that the search for eternal life is a pursuit that can never be fully realized. What is most striking about Gilgamesh's journey is the interplay between myth and history. The epic is undeniably a work of fiction, woven with gods and monsters. But was Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, a real person? The historical evidence is scant, and scholars have long debated whether the tales of Gilgamesh are based on an actual ruler, or if he is simply a product of myth. Some argue that he was a historical king who lived around 2700 BCE, a ruler whose achievements were later mythologized to elevate his status. Others suggest that Gilgamesh's story is entirely symbolic, a representation of the Sumerian ideal of kingship, a way of embodying the tensions between the divine and the human in a single figure. What complicates this debate further is the lack of concrete archaeological evidence to definitively confirm Gilgamesh's existence. While Uruk itself is a well-documented city, the historical records do not provide direct references to a king named Gilgamesh. Instead, what we find are references to kingship in general, with some of the earliest inscriptions alluding to powerful rulers in the region. These texts, however, do not give us a clear and unmistakable picture of the man behind the myth. As a result, the line between history and legend becomes increasingly blurred. As we move from historical to mythological realms, the Epic of Gilgamesh presents a deeply spiritual journey. One of the most striking elements of the narrative is the story of Gilgamesh's search for immortality, which begins after the death of his close companion Enkidu. Devastated by his friend's demise, Gilgamesh embarks on a quest to find the secret of eternal life. His journey takes him to the farthest corners of the earth, where he encounters gods and supernatural beings, all in the hope of avoiding the fate that claimed Enkidu. In his quest, Gilgamesh seeks out Utnapishtim, a figure who holds the key to eternal life, and who tells him the tale of the Great Flood, a story strikingly similar to the biblical tale of Noah. This flood narrative, found in Tablet 11 of the Epic, is perhaps one of the most compelling aspects of the text. Some scholars have suggested that the story of Utnapishtim and the flood is a reflection of a shared cultural memory of a catastrophic flood event in the ancient Near East. The parallels to other flood myths, including those of the Hebrews and later civilizations, raise intriguing questions. Was there, in fact, a historical event that gave rise to these stories, or are they simply the product of widespread mythological themes? While the flood story itself is fascinating, it is the ending of the epic that leaves the most profound questions unanswered. After failing to secure immortality, Gilgamesh returns to Uruk, a wiser and more humble king. He accepts his mortality, understanding that immortality is not a gift meant for humankind. Instead, his legacy will live on through the enduring greatness of his city, Uruk. The final passage of the epic speaks to the lasting power of human endeavor, suggesting that while we may not achieve eternal life, our contributions to civilization can endure through the ages. But even as the Epic of Gilgamesh offers a resolution, it simultaneously opens the door to further questions. The exact origins of the poem itself remain shrouded in mystery. While it is widely believed to have been written down during the Old Babylonian period, around 1800 BCE, the story likely existed in various oral traditions long before it was committed to clay tablets. Some scholars have posited that the epic was based on much older Sumerian myths that were later woven into the narrative of Gilgamesh's reign. Others suggest that the epic reflects the broader cultural values and existential concerns of Sumerian society. Yet, despite its ancient origins, the Epic of Gilgamesh continues to resonate with modern audiences. Its exploration of friendship, the inevitability of death, and the human desire for transcendence strikes a universal chord. But there is also something unsettling about the story. Gilgamesh's quest for immortality, his defiance of death, and his eventual acceptance of his fate may reflect our own longing for answers to life's most fundamental questions. What happens after death? What is the nature of our existence? And are we, like Gilgamesh, destined to leave behind only the shadow of a legacy, while the deeper mysteries of life remain forever out of reach? The mystery of Gilgamesh, the man, the myth, and the epic, remains unresolved. Whether he was a real king or a mythical figure, whether the stories of the gods and the flood are rooted in history or imagination, one thing is certain. Gilgamesh's journey speaks to a deep, unanswerable truth about the human condition. Perhaps the most profound mystery is not the details of his story, but the timeless nature of the questions he raised, questions that continue to echo through history, unanswered. What we may have lost, hidden in the folds of myth and legend, is not merely the identity of a king, but the key to understanding the very essence of what it means to be human. The ancient city of rising on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, was not merely the cradle of a great civilization. It was the birthplace of stories that would echo through the corridors of time. These tales, woven into the fabric of Sumerian culture, were not just myth. They were the foundation of how the Sumerians understood the cosmos, their place in it, and the forces that governed their world. Yet, what makes Sumerian mythology particularly fascinating is not just its depth, but the way these myths would ripple outward, influencing the mythologies of later civilizations. The Sumerians' gods were not distant, detached deities. They were active participants in the world, manipulating the fates of mortals and the natural world alike. From the creation myths to the tales of the great heroes, the Sumerian pantheon presented a vision of the cosmos that was deeply intertwined with humanity. But it is their stories, the epic tales of gods and kings, that would transcend the boundaries of Mesopotamia, leaving their mark on civilizations that would rise long after Sumer itself had fallen. Take, for instance, the Epic of Gilgamesh, arguably one of the most famous pieces of literature from the ancient world. The tale of this semi-divine king of Uruk, who embarks on a perilous journey in search of immortality, has left an indelible mark on literature, philosophy, and religious thought. But while Gilgamesh's story is often hailed as one of the earliest works of literature, What is often overlooked is the extent to which it influenced later mythological traditions. The flood narrative, one of the most famous and compelling elements of the Epic of Gilgamesh, has parallels in cultures all around the world. The gods' decision to flood the earth and cleanse it of humanity's sins is a theme that reappears not only in later Mesopotamian literature, but also in the biblical flood story. The similarities between the flood of Gilgamesh and the biblical flood of Noah are striking, so much so that scholars have long speculated that the latter was, in some form, a retelling or borrowing of the Sumerian myth. But the influence of Sumerian myths doesn't end there. The gods of the Sumerians, like Anu, Enlil, and Inanna, would later become part of the pantheon in civilizations such as the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. In fact, the Babylonian god Marduk is often thought to have inherited much of his character from the Sumerian god Enlil, the god of air and storms. Similarly, Inanna, the goddess of love and war, would evolve into the Babylonian goddess Ishtar, whose power and influence would extend across much of the ancient Near East. But could the Sumerian influence have reached even further? Consider the ancient Egyptians, with their pantheon of gods and goddesses. Egypt and Sumer were contemporaneous civilizations, both flourishing in their own right, and trade or contact between the two could have been possible. Some scholars have proposed that certain motifs in Egyptian mythology, such as the story of the sun god Ra and the journey through the underworld, might have drawn inspiration from Sumerian myths, which frequently dealt with themes of death, rebirth, and the afterlife. The Egyptians' own creation myth, which involves the birth of the world from the primordial waters, shares similarities with the Sumerian creation story in which the god Enki rises from the watery abyss to bring order to the chaos. While these connections are often tenuous and speculative, the echoes of Sumerian thought in these distant civilizations can't be dismissed entirely. Then there is the more enigmatic question of how these myths spread. Did these stories travel through trade and cultural exchange? Or did they have deeper roots, perhaps carried by shared ancient experiences that predate even Sumer itself? In the case of the Greek gods and heroes, there are even clearer parallels. The figure of Gilgamesh, for instance, bears striking similarities to later Greek heroes like Heracles, Hercules, whose 12 labors and quest for immortality mirror Gilgamesh's own journey. Some even argue that the Greek story of Persephone's descent into the underworld and return to the earth reflects the Sumerian myth of Inanna's descent to the realm of the dead and her resurrection. As we trace the path of Sumerian myths through history, we encounter a fascinating phenomenon, their seamless integration into the mythologies of other cultures. The motifs of divine retribution, the flood, the quest for eternal life, and the cyclical nature of death and rebirth are universal themes that resonate deeply across cultures. Whether it was the Semitic Akkadians or the Indo-European Greeks, these themes would evolve but retain their Sumerian roots. But here lies another mystery. What is the true origin of these stories? Did the Sumerians themselves invent them, or were they inspired by older, perhaps even pre-Sumerian traditions? As we sift through ancient texts, one might wonder, were these stories handed down from even earlier civilizations that predate Sumer? Some researchers believe that ancient mythologies are the vestiges of a lost world, a time before recorded history, where these archetypal tales were first born. If such a lost civilization existed, could Sumer have been the inheritor of their wisdom? Or perhaps these stories were universal truths, deeply embedded in the collective unconscious of humankind, and thus reappeared in different forms across different cultures. The persistence of Sumerian influence can also be seen in the way their myths have permeated modern thought. The motifs of Gilgamesh, of flood myths, and of divine kingship can still be found in our literature, our art, and even in the collective consciousness of the modern world. The quest for immortality, the struggle between good and evil, and the human desire to understand the divine continue to be themes that resonate with us today. As the sands of time continue to shift and the tablets of the ancient world slowly yield their secrets, we are left with the question, what else might Sumer have given to the world? How much of our own culture, our own mythology, is a reflection of the stories that were told in the shadow of the ziggurats? And, perhaps most intriguingly, are there still lost stories waiting to be uncovered? Stories that may shed light on the deeper origins of the myths we think we know. In exploring the legacy of Sumerian mythology, we find ourselves confronted with more than just tales of gods and heroes. We are forced to confront the mystery of how these ancient stories, born in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, managed to survive and adapt across millennia. What truths, hidden beneath the surface of these mythic narratives, might yet be revealed? Beneath the fertile plains of ancient Sumer, where the Tigris and Euphrates carved their way through the earth, a darker, more enigmatic world lies hidden from the sun. It is a world of shadow and silence, where ancient caves, sometimes natural, sometimes man-made, whisper secrets that the Sumerians themselves may have tried to keep concealed. These caves, scattered throughout Mesopotamia, have long captured the imagination of historians and archaeologists, but their true purpose and the mysteries they hold remain unsolved. What knowledge did they protect? What was their connection to the spiritual and cultural fabric of the Sumerians? The very concept of caves in Sumerian thought carries a weight of symbolism. In Sumerian mythology, caves were often seen as the domains of the gods or the dead. The underworld, a shadowy realm where the souls of the departed journeyed, was believed to be hidden deep beneath the earth. Caves may have been seen as a natural link between the world of the living and the realm of the gods. Some legends speak of these underground chambers as sacred spaces where ritualistic acts took place, where mysteries of life and death were revealed, or where the gods themselves would sometimes walk among the people. As we look at the remains of Sumerian cities, it is easy to overlook the significance of the caves that dot the landscape. Yet, in the ancient world, these subterranean spaces were not mere places of refuge or shelter from the scorching sun. Many of these caves, such as those discovered near Nippur and Ur, have yielded evidence of ceremonial use, complete with the remains of offerings and artifacts that suggest these places were once central to Sumerian religious practices. But what kind of rituals took place in these hidden, shadowed spaces? Could they have been the sites of mysterious rites linked to their gods? Rites that have since been lost to time? Among the most enigmatic caves of ancient Sumer are those that are believed to have been used as burial chambers. The practice of entombing the dead within caves has been documented across various ancient cultures, but its significance within the Sumerian worldview remains a subject of intrigue. Some archaeologists suggest that these caves may have served as crypts for high-ranking individuals, perhaps kings, priests, or other figures of power, whose spirits were believed to maintain an eternal connection with the divine. Could the contents of these tombs, rich with offerings, treasures, and artifacts, hold clues to a deeper understanding of the Sumerian connection to the afterlife? However, the mystery of the caves goes beyond mere burial. Over the years, several unusual cave paintings have been discovered in some of these subterranean sites, offering tantalizing hints at their function. These paintings, while not as extensive or well-known as those found in other parts of the world, depict figures that resemble the Sumerian pantheon of gods, along with animals, geometric shapes, and strange symbols. Why were these images etched into the walls of caves? Were they representations of divine beings or cosmic forces? Were they part of rituals that allowed the living to communicate with the gods? Or were they designed to invoke the protection of these powerful entities in the afterlife? One particular cave near Uruk stands out. In 1925, an expedition uncovered a narrow shaft that led deep underground. At the end of the shaft, the team discovered a hidden chamber, remarkably well preserved despite the passage of millennia. Inside, they found an array of objects, some of which didn't quite match any known Sumerian iconography. Oddly enough, there was also evidence of astrological tools, possibly used for divining the future or communicating with celestial entities. These tools were found alongside ceremonial ritual masks and fragments of what appeared to be ritualistic texts. Was this a temple to the gods of the heavens? Or was it something darker, a space where the Sumerians performed rites to navigate the boundaries between life, death, and the divine? Even more puzzling were the stone tablets that were uncovered, some of which contained what appeared to be a form of cuneiform writing, but not in the conventional Sumerian language. The symbols were unfamiliar, strange, and alien in nature. Were they the scribbled remains of an ancient and lost language? Or perhaps a form of secret communication intended only for the highest priests or those with esoteric knowledge? This raises a question that has remained unanswered for decades. Could these caves have been repositories of forbidden knowledge intended to be sealed away from the common people, hidden from the prying eyes of history? Despite the mysteries they hold, there is little to suggest that the caves of Sumer were part of an isolated phenomenon. Across Mesopotamia, there are tales of hidden chambers and secret vaults buried beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. Some believe that these chambers were connected to an ancient network of underground tunnels, which were used not only for religious rites, but also for political and social purposes. Were these tunnels and caves part of a vast underground network that facilitated communication between different city-states in ancient Sumer? Were they, in fact, the original network of the early world, where traders, leaders, and the elite could meet without fear of detection? And could they have served as a secure space for those in power to hide their most prized possessions? Yet, not all interpretations of these caves align with the conventional view of Sumerian history. Some alternative theories posit that these subterranean structures were more than just ritualistic sites or hidden burial chambers. Some fringe theorists argue that the caves were entrances to a much larger, hidden civilization, one that existed long before the Sumerians came to power. Could these caves hold the remnants of a lost civilization, one whose knowledge was either destroyed or hidden away for reasons unknown? Were the Sumerians, whose culture was so advanced for its time, merely inheritors of ancient knowledge, passed down from an even older, more advanced civilization? What's even more perplexing is the existence of artifacts that appear to contradict the Sumerians' supposed technological capabilities. Some of these objects, including tools and vessels, display a level of craftsmanship that suggests a more advanced understanding of metallurgy, engineering, and even astronomy than was believed to exist at the time. Were these artifacts passed down from an earlier civilization, or did the Sumerians themselves possess a technology that was lost to the ages? As we delve deeper into the mystery of these ancient caves, we find ourselves not just questioning what is hidden within them, but also the very nature of what these spaces might have represented in Sumerian thought. Were they merely sacred spaces used for rituals, or were they doorways into realms beyond the reach of mortal understanding? And, if we continue to uncover their secrets, what truths might we stumble upon? Truths that could reshape our understanding of ancient Sumer and the civilizations that came before and after it? The caves, with their silent echoes, continue to guard their secrets. And as we stand on the threshold, we can't help but wonder, what lies buried beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered? And what will it reveal about the ancient Sumerians who left it behind? In the ancient city-states of Sumer, nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the stars above were not mere twinkling dots in the sky. For the Sumerians, the night sky was a map, a living, breathing tapestry that guided their lives. Their astronomers, it seems, had an uncanny understanding of the heavens, and their observations and calculations shaped their civilization in ways that still resonate today. But how did they come to possess such advanced astronomical knowledge? And what secrets did they uncover about the cosmos that we are still only beginning to comprehend? The Sumerians were among the first to systematically study the stars, and their efforts at charting the heavens were, in many ways, groundbreaking. They didn't simply look at the sky for beauty or wonder, as early cultures often did. Instead, they saw the cosmos as a divine system, one intricately linked to their beliefs, politics, and daily lives. Celestial bodies, for the Sumerians, weren't distant or detached. They were gods, they were omens, and they were guides to the future. The Sumerians' most remarkable contribution to astronomy may be their lunar calendar. By observing the cycles of the moon, its waxing and waning over the course of roughly 29.5 days, they devised a calendar that was surprisingly accurate. The lunar month became the foundation for their timekeeping system, a system that influenced cultures far beyond the borders of Mesopotamia. The Sumerians divided the month into phases, tracking the exact points when the moon appeared new, half, and full. This keen observation of lunar cycles allowed them to establish a reliable, year-long framework for agricultural practices, religious festivals, and governmental affairs. But their astronomical knowledge didn't stop at the moon. The Sumerians also charted the movement of the planets, particularly those visible to the naked eye: Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Their understanding of the planets was deeply intertwined with their religion, as they associated each of these celestial bodies with one of their gods. Venus, the brightest planet in the sky, was connected to the goddess Inanna, who embodied love, fertility, and warfare. Mars was tied to Nergal, the god of war and destruction, while Jupiter was associated with Marduk, the patron god of Babylon. Saturn, meanwhile, was linked with the god Ninurta, a figure of war and agriculture. What's particularly fascinating is the accuracy with which the Sumerians tracked the motions of these planets. They didn't just note the positions of the planets in the sky, they also created complex systems to predict their movements. This early form of astrological astronomy was far more than mere superstition. It was a sophisticated science that allowed them to forecast events, both cosmic and earthly. The Enuma Anu Enlil, a series of astronomical texts dating back to around 1900 BCE, contains detailed records of celestial events, including the movements of the planets and their alignment with certain stars. These texts, written in cuneiform, show a remarkable attention to detail, suggesting that the Sumerians had not only mapped the heavens but understood the cyclical nature of the universe. Yet despite this impressive knowledge, there are still many unanswered questions about how the Sumerians arrived at their astronomical insights. Some historians believe that their knowledge came from a combination of empirical observation and the shared wisdom of earlier cultures. However, the sheer precision of their calculations leads some to speculate that the Sumerians might have been privy to knowledge that could have been passed down from even earlier civilizations now lost to time. The ziggurats, the massive stepped pyramids that punctuate the ancient Sumerian landscape, offer another intriguing clue. These monumental structures were not merely architectural feats, they were aligned with the heavens. Scholars have noted that many ziggurats were positioned to align with specific celestial events, such as solstices or the rising of particular stars. The most famous of these alignments is found in the city of Ur, where the Ziggurat of Ur is thought to have been aligned with the rising of the star Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. This suggests that the Sumerians didn't simply observe the sky. They also integrated their astronomical knowledge into their sacred spaces, reflecting a deep belief in the power of the stars to influence human affairs. But while these examples demonstrate the Sumerians' celestial awareness, they also raise more questions than answers. How did they come by such precise measurements of the heavens without advanced tools like telescopes? Did they have access to some form of lost technology or knowledge that has been erased from history? could their remarkable astronomical knowledge have been passed down from even earlier cultures, perhaps from a time long before the Sumerians rose to prominence? Another mystery lies in the Sumerian concept of the four corners of the earth. This idea, seen in Sumerian cosmology, referred to four distant regions, each one representing a direction or a divine influence. These areas weren't just symbolic, they were tied to the Sumerians' real-world understanding of geography. These corners were often associated with sacred lands or locations connected to their gods. But what is most fascinating is that these regions sometimes seem to correspond to actual places that would not have been commonly known at the time. Did the Sumerians possess knowledge of far-flung lands, such as Egypt or the Arabian Peninsula, that was only later confirmed through archaeological exploration? Perhaps one of the most enigmatic examples of Sumerian geographical knowledge lies in their astronomical texts. The Sumerians were not just earthbound. They were keen astronomers, mapping the heavens and aligning their cities and temples according to the stars. The alignment of structures like the ziggurats suggests a deep understanding of celestial geography, positioning their monuments in ways that reflected the movements of the stars and planets. Could it be that the Sumerians used their knowledge of the heavens to guide their understanding of the earth? Were the stars themselves seen as coordinates, guiding explorers on their journeys? Yet, while the evidence points to an advanced geographic knowledge, many questions remain unanswered. How did the Sumerians acquire such detailed knowledge of distant lands and celestial bodies without the technological tools that we take for granted today? Did they have access to lost or forgotten methods of navigation or mapping? Or could there be another explanation, one that draws on the possibility of knowledge passed down through ancient, mysterious means, perhaps from civilizations far older than the Sumerians themselves? As we continue to uncover the secrets of ancient Sumerian geography, we are left to wonder whether this knowledge was the result of human ingenuity, divine influence, or something altogether more extraordinary. What mysteries lie hidden beneath the surface of these ancient texts, waiting to be unlocked by future generations? Perhaps the answers to these questions are closer than we think. Or perhaps they are lost forever, just out of reach, waiting to be rediscovered. ChatGPT said, "As the sun began to set over the endless stretches of Mesopotamian plains, casting a soft, amber glow on the earth, one could almost imagine the world as it once was, alive with the buzz of emerging civilizations. Among the earliest of these was the great city of Uruk, a place often heralded as the very cradle of urban society. But beneath its towering walls and intricate networks of canals, there is a story, a myth, that speaks of more than just stone and mortar, a story that blends the ancient with the supernatural, the real with the imagined. The myth of the founding of Uruk, like many Sumerian tales, is steeped in mystery and wonder, reaching far beyond the tangible and into the realms of divine inspiration and human ambition. Uruk was no ordinary city. It was an ancient metropolis, perhaps the first true city in human history, at the heart of Sumerian civilization. The myth surrounding its origins is one of grand ambition, divine favor, and, as many myths go, the struggle between human frailty and the god's will. At the center of this myth is the legendary king, Gilgamesh. He was a ruler whose name would echo through the ages, a king both revered and feared. According to the myth, Gilgamesh was no ordinary man, but a demigod, the son of the goddess Ninsun and the mortal king Lugalbanda. Strong, wise, and ambitious, he sought to establish a city unlike any that had come before it. This was no mere settlement, but a symbol of human achievement, a testament to the power of will, craftsmanship, and divine blessing. But how, one might wonder, does a single ruler build a city that will endure for millennia? The answer lies not just in his own strength, but in a divine pact with the gods. The myth suggests that Uruk's foundation was laid with a grand plan, a vision given to Gilgamesh by the gods themselves. It wasn't a task to be taken lightly. The construction of Uruk's mighty walls, which would encircle the city and stand tall against invaders, was said to be a divine endeavor. But who truly designed them? Who guided the hands of the workers that shaped the great stones of the city? Was it simply human ingenuity, or was there something more at play? This remains a central question in understanding the origins of Uruk. Gilgamesh, according to the myth, was not alone in his quest. He was aided by his companion, Enkidu, a wild man created by the gods to counterbalance Gilgamesh's pride and arrogance. Together, they faced the challenges of the natural world, battled ferocious beasts, and overcame unimaginable odds. The construction of Uruk was as much a testament to their friendship as it was to their ability to tame the chaos of the world around them. Yet, as with all myths, there is more to the story than simply the labor of building. The city's creation was also symbolic. It stood as a symbol of civilization itself, an embodiment of humanity's triumph over chaos, its rise from the wilderness into the realm of law, governance, and culture. Through the myth of Uruk's founding, the Sumerians conveyed a larger, more abstract idea. The relationship between man and the divine, the bridge between the chaotic natural world and the structured, controlled world of human civilization. But was Uruk's founding truly a purely human endeavor? This question invites more speculation. Some have wondered whether the myth of Uruk's foundation was an allegory for something greater. Could the tale hint at an ancient, forgotten technology? Perhaps the walls Gilgamesh and Enkidu constructed weren't just of stone and brick, but of a hidden knowledge, one that allowed ancient Sumerians to manipulate the land itself, creating a city from nothing. Others, with more fringe theories, suggest that Uruk's myth could be tied to extraterrestrial influences. Could the gods who guided Gilgamesh in his endeavor have been beings from another world? This theory, though not widely accepted, evokes an eerie parallel with other ancient civilizations that claim divine assistance in the construction of monumental structures. Did the gods of Uruk possess knowledge far beyond what the early Sumerians could have comprehended? What we do know for certain is that the city of Uruk became a beacon of power, influence, and culture long after its mythic foundations. It gave birth to one of the first known systems of writing, Cuneiform, and became the center of Sumerian civilization. Gilgamesh's legacy, immortalized in the Epic of Gilgamesh, spoke not only of kingship and power, but also of humanity's struggles against the inevitable forces of fate, mortality, and loss. But even as we study the remnants of Uruk today, its ancient ruins and impressive walls, we cannot help but wonder how much of its true origin remains hidden from us. The myth tells us of divine intervention and human ambition. It speaks of grand visions and untold mysteries. Yet, like so many ancient myths, it leaves us with more questions than answers. Was Uruk truly a city born from divine will, or was it the product of extraordinary human ingenuity? And what of Gilgamesh himself? Was he a king who simply wanted to rule a great city, or was he a man driven by a deeper, perhaps more mysterious purpose? As we dig into the myths of the past, we cannot ignore the lingering sense that there may be more to Uruk's foundation than meets the eye, a knowledge lost in time, waiting to be uncovered, still hiding beneath the layers of myth, history, and stone. As the sun casts its long shadows across the ancient landscape of Sumer, one cannot help but imagine the towering ziggurats that once punctuated the skyline, massive, stepped temples dedicated to the gods, the ultimate expressions of human devotion and architectural ingenuity. These monuments, which rise like mountains of clay and stone, were more than just religious structures. They were symbols of the divine order, bridging the heavens with the earth. But how did such awe-inspiring monuments come to be? What is the true origin of these monumental structures that have mystified historians and archaeologists for centuries? The ziggurat, with its tiered form and towering presence, was the centerpiece of many Sumerian cities. The most famous, the Ziggurat of Ur, was dedicated to the moon god Nana and loomed over the city as both a physical and spiritual beacon. Yet the creation of these sacred mountains remains shrouded in mystery. How did the Sumerians come to design such complex structures, and what drove them to build on such an enormous scale? Historical records suggest that the ziggurats were part of a larger architectural and religious evolution. They were the result of centuries of development, reflecting the growing complexity of Sumerian society, where political, religious, and economic power were all intertwined. But while we have a solid understanding of their function, places of worship, and ritual, what we lack is a clear understanding of the true origins of their design. Who first conceived of the ziggurat? Was it merely an architectural evolution, or was there something deeper at play? One Sumerian myth offers an intriguing clue. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the great king of Uruk is portrayed as a man of divine descent, tasked with both human and godly responsibilities. In some versions of the myth, Gilgamesh is said to have been instrumental in the construction of the first ziggurat. The narrative weaves a tale of divine intervention, where the gods themselves provide guidance, encouraging the building of these sacred temples. But how much of this myth is grounded in reality? Was there truly a divine hand in the creation of these colossal structures? Or was it simply a way to elevate their significance through myth? Many believe that the creation of the ziggurat symbolized more than just religious devotion. The construction of these massive temples may have been an expression of power, a way for rulers to legitimize their reign and demonstrate their connection to the gods. In ancient Sumer, the king was not merely a ruler. He was seen as the earthly representative of the gods, tasked with maintaining cosmic order. The ziggurat, as a towering structure dedicated to divine power, would have underscored the king's sacred role. Yet, this raises further questions. Did the construction of the ziggurat begin as a simple temple to a local god, only to evolve into a symbol of divine kingship? Or was there something more to the ziggurat's form and function that remains hidden from view? There are also more speculative theories that delve into the possibility of an ancient understanding of engineering and astronomy that the Sumerians may have possessed. The perfectly aligned and mathematically precise proportions of the ziggurats suggest that those who designed them were not only skilled builders, but also had a profound understanding of geometry and astronomy. Some fringe theories propose that the ziggurats were not simply religious structures but could have had additional, secret purposes. Could they have been designed as a kind of ancient observatory with their vast height allowing priests or astronomers to study the stars? Some even speculate that the ziggurats might have been part of a larger, forgotten system of knowledge, passed down through secretive ancient schools of thought. There are also those who suggest that the ziggurats may have served as part of a much grander cosmic design, one that aligns with the heavens themselves. If we consider the influence of astrology in Sumerian culture, could the ziggurats have been intended to symbolize the connection between the gods and the stars? Perhaps the placement and orientation of these temples were no coincidence, but rather they were meticulously designed to track celestial events, marking the passage of time and aligning with significant cosmic cycles. Further compounding the mystery is the sheer scale of the ziggurats themselves. How did the Sumerians, with their relatively simple tools and technology, manage to build such colossal structures? The Ziggurat of Ur, for example, stands more than 100 feet tall, made from millions of mud bricks, and was built over several generations. Were there techniques lost to history that allowed them to create such an ambitious project, or were they simply ahead of their time, employing methods that modern engineers would still find challenging? The lack of concrete records on the construction of these structures only adds to the intrigue. While there are many myths and religious texts that hint at the divine origin of the ziggurat, few provide definitive answers about the practicalities of their construction. Did the kings and priests of Sumer possess forgotten secrets, knowledge passed down through the ages but now obscured by the sands of time? Or were these monumental structures simply the products of their era's religious fervor and engineering prowess? What is clear, however, is the profound impact the ziggurats had on the Sumerian worldview. They were not just buildings, they were expressions of the divine order, monumental works meant to honor the gods, represent the cosmos, and anchor the cities in the physical and spiritual realm. The ziggurat was the center of Sumerian life, a focal point for both daily activities and sacred rites. But even now, centuries after the fall of the Sumerian civilization, the true origins of the ziggurat remain as elusive as ever. Were they the creations of a deeply religious society driven by a need to communicate with the divine? Or were they the result of a more practical need for societal organization, a manifestation of earthly power disguised as divine ambition? And perhaps most hauntingly, could there be a deeper cosmic significance behind their creation, a knowledge lost to time that continues to elude us? The myth of the ziggurat's creation, steeped in both religious legend and architectural mystery, remains one of the most tantalizing and unresolved aspects of ancient Sumerian history. And as we continue to uncover more about the people who built them, we may find that the truth of these monumental structures is far more complex and far more mysterious than we could ever imagine.